Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Conversation with King, and today is Tuesday. You know, today, Tuesday, we do Queen's Court. In Queen's Court today, we have a very legendary panel today. We have a legendary panel. I promise you, this show today is going to be one of the shows that are timeless. It's going to stand the test of time with just content, information, truth, and solutions. Not solution, but solutions to dealing with trauma from your childhood in regards to romantic relationships. And we're talking about women today. Women. I know everybody wants to talk about men as well, but we want to focus on women today because we live in such a patriarchal society. At some point, we got to focus on a woman, but there's nothing wrong with patriarchy. I kind of like patriarchy, right? Because I'm a man. Go figure, right? Go figure. Of course, I'm going to like patriarchy. But we want to talk about the topic today because as a man, I dated many women. I vetted many women, and I feel like I have to bear the burden of things that I wasn't a part of in their childhood. So I want to ask some ladies today who I respect, not because they're all beautiful, but because they're brilliant and they're fearless. And I want to ask them these particular questions in regards to what childhood trauma, how does childhood trauma transcends into romantic relationships for women? So please get everybody in the room in the channel today. Conversation with King is Queen's Court. Please do me that favor. I'm gonna go through the sponsors real quick. We're gonna introduce the ladies on the panel right afterwards. Give a quick shout out to those who are in the chat room, and then we shall start the discussion. I apologize. I was late. I was coming from a date. You know, I'm still trying to get married out here. It's kind of hard for African to get married. Boy-headed African. I wish I had my ways back in the days. If I had my ways, I'd probably get girl quicker, but that's all right. So we're gonna start the sponsorship. Here we go. And we want to give a special shout out to Ripple for always showing us love from day one. Ripple, those who don't know, please go and get the code, which is the Ripple King. The Ripple King is my code if you want a 15% discount at the Ripple Plus. Small ripples make big waves. All flavors, zero nicotine, and it's plant powered. So no toxins. Thank you very much. Also, for those who love to read and love to talk about love and be about love, go and support my book, please. It's called Love and Life Through the Eyes of Travel. It's on Amazon, Kindle, Apple iBooks, Book Baby, and other platforms that sell amazing books like mine. For those who don't know, this is a book that means dear to me because I wrote it when I was in prison. Also, Love. This is by Willie Dean. He is one of the most amazing fathers in the world. He wrote a book called Love. He actually went to school. He played basketball in Russia. He speaks, writes, and also reads Russian. Please go and support this book if you can. Terry Mera, thank you so much for providing the branding for our show, as well as our artwork, as well as our clothing and merchandise. You have done an amazing job. We truly appreciate you. Shout out to Terry Mera, the Korean cutie. Also, for those who want to go and get my merchandise, go to Bonfire Conversation with King. Please go and get some of the stuff that we have: hoodies, t-shirts, crew neck sweaters. Being great is the new petty. That's one of the quotes that I go by. Being great is the new petty. So please go and support that. That's such a profound statement because you don't have to always be spiteful, right? Just be successful, and you hurt all your enemies. Trust me with that. So please go and support that. And those who are not members of the members only King's Court, please go and become members. You get these cool emojis. Also, I haven't put exclusive content yet. I'm going to. I know I'm looking like a little flake right now, but bear with me. I'm living a bachelor's life, a playboy life, so I don't have time. Being a womanizer and be a YouTube content creator is kind of hard to juggle. So please work with me. Thank you. With that being said, I want to say thank you for everybody for supporting my show and coming out today. Shout out to Loverboy Lenski, who is the captain of the ship. Shout out to Sugar Bum. Shout out to everybody that comes to supports us. April Carter, Terry, thank you so much. And who else? Am I missing anybody? Yes, I am. Shout out to Queen Nita, who always comes first and shows us love. The Big Rock Chris, Tristan Draper, thank you so much for showing up, as well as Kimberly, Brother Noomsy, Tiffany Daniels, Maya, Shane Nolan, and we are officially done with the shout outs. So without further ado, let me introduce the ladies, starting with Kim. Kim, how are you? How was your day?
Hey, hello, King. Hello, Garden. It's Tuesday, right? Happy Tuesday. Okay. Yeah, today has been what today was. I am fully in the moment and fully engaged with you guys and really excited to talk about something super important. So, peace, y'all.
Okay. Ali, Sassy Ali, what's up?
Thank you. Half the time I'm sassy. It's an accident, y'all. But I just got done with CrossFit, had a good day. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about a subject that I'm passionate about, which is going to be child abuse, but that's essentially childhood trauma. So can't wait to get into it.
Thank you. Nikki, the Glow Code, talk to me.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Today was a wonderful day. My, channel I call Tuesdays Tell the Truth Tuesday. So hopefully we can get into some truth this evening. I am a lawyer by training, but I'm also a board certified coach, helping women integrate a spiritual strategy into their lives so that they can design the lives they truly deserve. And I am happy to be here tonight.
Yes, Sheree, talk to us.
Hey everybody, it's Sheree B Chicago. I'm glad to be here, able to talk to these ladies. I've watched them a few times now. I get to actually speak to these beautiful women, so this is gonna be dope. I love it. I just got done with my stream as well, so we had a conversation about black leaders. So I guess I got to be a black leader today and talk about something that's a little tough. So yeah, but we're gonna have to have it because I definitely have a perspective on this particular thing from personal experience that I may tap into today. You never know.
That's amazing. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I completely stole this idea. They say good writers create and great writers steal. And guess what I am? I'm officially great. I stole this from Allie. Completely stole it from Allie. I'm surprised she didn't get the USPTO tax force to attack the US Patent Trademark Office. I didn't get the joke. No, I'm corny today, whatever. But I went to a show one day and I saw her doing a show with another young amazing woman, and the lady was in tears. She was in tears. She was in absolute tears, telling her story, and I felt that this need to come to our community, which is the garden, which is our community. I really do believe when it talks about the black community or the brown community, conversation with King, despite the subscribers, 1,300 subscribers, people come to my show. They watch my show. You can look at the views. They really watch it. And people talk about it. And I need this message to get out. And I want people to heal. I really want people to heal. Or at least start the process of healing, right? And this is very important to me. So please bring people in the room. This is going to be something that we're really going to have to dive into. Before we ask the first question, I want to give a shout out to Kimberly, Quampton Love, TBE Trucking, also my YouTube Twin Flame Mo, as well as who else? I hope I don't forget. Don't get mad at me. Please don't get mad at me. Queen Ebony, as well as Porter Princess Natalie. With that being said, let me ask the first question, and let me know if I'm jumping in the fire too early. But the first question, ladies, I don't want to get personal. Percentage-wise, what is the percentage of women that suffer from childhood trauma? And those women, does it affect their relationships, romantic relationships? We're not talking about platonic, but romantic relationships.
Well, I guess I will jump in because I see a couple people muted right now. A percentage of women, that's going to be a little bit tough. I think in the West, we're a little bit overly educated on childhood trauma. And so there's other countries where the children are doing just fine and because they haven't had that definition put onto what occurred with them. But the latest stat that I have is from the CDC from 2020, and it's 1 in 7 children suffers from child abuse or experiences child abuse. And so child abuse comes in 5 forms. One is physical neglect. That means that you don't have food or you're dirty. There's emotional neglect. Your emotions are never validated. There is physical abuse. That's obviously hitting them. There's sexual abuse. I think we know that one. And then there's verbal abuse, which people don't know this, but it can be so severe that you can get PTSD from verbal abuse because it
Mm.
rewires your brain in that way. It's basically psychological battery. So I think that there are a lot of women who don't report. I think there's a lot of people that don't report, don't know that they've experienced it. They just think their parents are dysfunctional. They might not find out until they're 30 or 40. But I think it affects women a lot in dating. I mean, my goodness, you can't, good luck getting a man if you're a basket case because you haven't recovered. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, so to kind of speak to some of the stats that Ali gave, again, I couldn't find a lot about women, but it's estimated that around 223.4 million people suffer from PTSD. That many people have had some type of traumatic experience. Again, I don't know the breakout of women, but I mean, a lot of things that happen with PTSD and with trauma, just in general, it kind of wrecks your ability to trust, right? So when you've been traumatized, if you've been abused, you are going to like expect danger. You expect betrayal, harm. These are things that you expect to happen. And so those are foundational for relationships. So, of course, people who suffer could definitely have issues with relationships, but I think the thing that's really interesting is that based on the person and based on the type of trauma and how far removed from it they are, if they are removed, it's going to manifest in different ways. And so I think it's really interesting sometimes when we hear people and they talk about certain behaviors that we see people do, and they're like, oh, she must have done this and she must have gone through that. And I mean, it's interesting because it's a possibility, but we just don't know, because it manifests in so many different ways. I mean, your brain pretty much disassociates from things. I've even spoken with people who've had traumatic experiences that they don't even remember, and like years later, 20, 30, 40 years, they'll have a dream or they'll wake up and they will relive that moment. So I think it's really complex and really deep. And yeah, I hope I don't cry tonight. Let's just say that.
Wow. Wow. Nikki, Sheree?
Um, I would say I can't give a percentage of how many, but my gut is telling me that it's probably shockingly high, like probably higher than you think. I remember I was on your show maybe a week or two ago, and I said something like, because you were asking, how can you make a woman feel comfortable, when she's out on a date with you? And I remember saying something like, men should just be prepared to assume that the woman that they're with has experienced something in her lifetime.
Wow.
You should expect that that is the case. Most women that I know have had something happen to different varying degrees. And as far as childhood trauma, sometimes it's not even something that specifically happened to you. Just witnessing things going on in your family with other people, or witnessing things in your neighborhood can be traumatic. Like, there are kids who are in the 7th grade and 2 or 3 of their friends have already been killed. That's traumatic. There are people who live in families where their mother's constantly in a domestic, violence. The police come in. Kids who have mothers who move from place to place to place. So these kids are clean and fed, but they've had 6 addresses this school year. That's traumatic. That's constant upheaval. And so lots of children are going through that. I mean, I used to work for the Office of Children and Youth here in my town, which is, again, the agency when someone calls and reports you for not feeding your kids or living in deplorable home conditions or child abuse or whatever. They are the organization that would remove your child from the home, have emergency removal hearings, and decide foster parenting or terminate parental rights and adopt children out. So I would be the attorney that would represent indigent parents who are having their children removed. And some of the things that I've seen, you would be I quit that. I would rather do criminal, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, drug deal, undercover, buy and bust. This over here, this I can't do. It was just horrible how children growing up with no toilet in the house, no running water, filthy, 55 cats in the house, like just crazy stuff that you would see. And it's very common. It's not out of the ordinary.
Sheree?
I think they all said it. It's one of those things, like the numbers are so high, and it's hard to document because I think Kim spoke to it. She said where sometimes somebody can just wake up and they just have this thing that they may have suppressed and it's coming up. Because I can speak personally, that's what happened to me. I had no idea. All of a sudden, something just was just gnawing at me, and I would think it would be first. It starts off as flashes, and then the flashes come in, and you're just sitting here like, what are these flashes? And you start to question, and then now you're noticing what the flashes are. And it's funny because I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm always coming across a young lady who has been violated or been abused of some sort. I was like, I'm always coming across one, and I'm always thinking to myself, like, man, it's that common. And then all of a sudden, my flashes came later, and I'm like, damn, I was one of them. Ain't that about a wow? And it's like you don't know. We have no idea what the numbers are because you got people who don't even know
Right.
because they suppressed it that deep.
Wow.
So that's why Glow said, like, hey, just assume first. Don't try to be pushy or nothing like that. Just like in the back of your mind, be like, it's a possibility. And because she may be the one of that out of that 7.
Wow. You know, one of the things that men go through, at least men, right? When we're courting women, we dating women, and women have these attitudes, or they're reluctant to do certain things sexually, or they want to take their time in regards to being intimate. We always assume the worst, right? We always assume like they're not feeling us or they're playing us. But based on what you ladies said, it could be something deeper, right? Do you ladies encourage women to seek therapy once they become fully aware of their past issues, and why?
I would like to go first. I wouldn't say when they become fully aware. I say as soon as you feel something. Because sometimes you need somebody to help you bring out that particular thing, and going through that process of acknowledging that thing or noticing that thing. Sometimes you can't even find the words. So having somebody to help you find the words and have that first cry that you may need, because you need to cry for the child that may not have nobody cry for. So you got to cry for yourself sometimes. So you need to have that safe space to have that ability to do that, so that you can heal. So I suggest therapy to anybody and everybody. You do not have to be crazy at your mind. You don't have to gone through anything traumatic in order to seek therapy. Sometimes you just need some fine tuning. Sometimes you're going through some things or whatever the case is. Sometimes you need somebody to talk to, because at that particular moment you may not have anybody in your life that you feel you can talk to. So you may have to speak to somebody who is licensed. So no, I wouldn't say as soon as you're fully aware. I say as soon as you get some kind of inkling, like something ain't right. I need to figure this out. Can somebody help me? And seek help. Seriously.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think Sheree really, I'm sorry, Nikki. I think Sheree really summed it up. Sometimes it is hard to kind of get under whatever it is and get to the root of it. And I think in the process, sometimes we just are not able. And so it is helpful to get that help before you even know necessarily what it is. And I mean, I'm just all for people going to therapy just in general. I'm all for children going to therapy. We have some health equity issues. We've got some socioeconomic issues that we've got to dig through to make sure it's more accessible. But I mean, I think it's a thing. I was also doing some reading, and I discovered that only like 4% of the mental health field, like psychologists, psychiatrists, only 4% of them are Black. And I know sometimes people are like, well, does it really matter? And it's like, to a lot of people, especially ones that are hesitant to go to therapy, people of color, it absolutely matters, because the person who is of your hue, you can assume, as Zora Neale Hurston said, all all kinfolk ain't skinfolk, or all skinfolk ain't kinfolk, right? We know that. But like, you know, for historical and just cultural relevance, you kind of do need that connection. And so I'm hoping again that like conversations like this and just different initiatives that universities and organizations can put together, hopefully they can get us through the hump. Because I think now more than ever, people, especially Black people, are open to going to therapy, but we really want to see Black clinicians. So yeah. And King, I have a couple of links I want to try to find to send that maybe we can put in the chat,
Yeah,
because
please
there are
put in
some
the chat.
organizations of Black clinicians that we could probably put just in
Absolutely.
case anybody needs that as a point of reference.
Please feel free to put in chat so I can highlight it. Thank you. The public chat, not the private. I can highlight it. Thank you, because you know I'm not that good. Nikki, anything you have to say?
I would just agree with everything they're saying about therapy. And also, I know we talked a lot about abuse and neglect, but I also want to add that abandonment is also a very serious trauma that I think so many children, specifically Black girls growing up, feel and experience. And it just really, I don't know if people understand the depth of the hurt, of the pain, of the traumas that come up as an adult that you didn't even realize were a trauma because you didn't know. And then you wake up one day and you realize, oh, shoot. Yeah, people who have dads don't think like this. They don't act like this. They don't have this constant, like I was to the point where I didn't want to let somebody do something for me because I don't know. What if I let you do it and then you don't do it? And then I might as well just do it myself. Because if I make myself vulnerable for you to do something, you ain't gonna do nothing but mess it up. Because that's all they ever do is mess. So I was like a hard, like, I don't want to give nobody the opportunity to mess it up because the first person who was supposed to have it messed it up. So that was kind of like my mind. And so girls who grow up with that, they're also more likely to be promiscuous, which opens you up to a whole other situation, which could lead to actual sexual or physical abuse. More prone to depression, eating disorders, and having weird, in psychology, it's called attachment styles. They have attachment disorders, not being able to form bonds and secure attachments with other people, which would obviously affect your relationship. So you fathers out there, if y'all are not in your all children's life, but daughters in particular, you're really causing a substantial harm to that child.
Okay. Okay. Allie?
Oh, yes. I'm just gonna challenge Nikki's point on only one thing. I would say that it's very important that a mother is allowing the father to be around because parental alienation is real. So if you are withholding a good man from your kids just because you're petty, like that needs to stop because she's gonna have lifetime consequences forever. You know? So for me, I want to speak a little bit to what Sheree was talking about, how she kind of ended up coming into awareness. My story is pretty bad. If you guys are okay with a little 3 to 5 minute tangent. So I didn't know that I was abused for a long time. I just thought that my parents were dysfunctional. And I just thought it was always drama. I'm like, well, that's the culture. That's Latino culture. It's fine. People yell, they throw things, all this other stuff. But then one day, I don't know what happened. It just hit me where I was like, wait a minute, other kids don't get horrifically beat. I thought this was going on in everyone's homes, but the military really woke me up to that because when you serve with a bunch of different people, and some of those people have like 2-parent well-rounded households. You're like, why is everybody so normal and I'm dysfunctional? So I ended up when I found out, it broke my identity. So I had a full-blown psychotic break where I was completely dissociating because I had gone from a daughter who was being loved by dysfunctional parents to a daughter who was abused by people that were supposed to care for her. And, I was truly at risk from not being healed from that or not having that awareness of being childless and alone, because it's really hard to make a relationship with a man work when you're constantly afraid of him and he didn't even do anything. They're just sitting there like, why? What is the issue here? But I would say that a lot of people don't know that they're abused. That's pretty normal. Sadly, I've got statistics for y'all. The highest rates of abuse are going to be 1 year and under. Wow. So what I want people to take away from that is to understand that you might have something nagging at you on the inside. You've never been able to trust people. And it's possible that in your first 3 years of life that people didn't respond to you when you were hungry or when you were crying. You'll never really know. We're never really going to know why people have certain behaviors, but that's just a little bit of my story. But I do recommend therapy. If you are wondering what's wrong with you and why everyone else is doing pretty all right, other people suffer too. Don't get me wrong. But if you're not socialized well, it's for a reason. So if that's you, you're the oddball in the room, go see a counselor.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go there. Right. I'm gonna go there early. We're gonna get it real spicy real early. So we're gonna start with Kim. Kim, you talk about this term called girlism, right? And you talk about the ladies having this inner girl in them, right? Ladies on the panel, is it true as grown ladies and women that you still have an inner girl in you that you still communicate with and you still are exploring? Not, I don't want everybody to sound crazy. I don't want people, like you're talking to, but it happens, right? You have an inner girl in you that you're still trying to heal, and you still feel neglected, that you're still dealing with right now, that inner girl in you, right? The inner girl that might have been touched, the inner girl that, just like Nikki, oh, guess what? I wish I learned several languages. I watch the shows, right? That's the inner girl, like, I wish I got to learn these several languages, right? Do you still battle with your inner girl every day? And then how does that reflect in your relationships, your romantic relationships? So I want to go there, start with Kim, because that is her term, girlism.
All right. So, okay, you want to keep it spicy? Here we go. Yes,
Right.
I do. I have to minister and talk to, I have to encourage that girl because she was so bright and she was just so awesome. And
Men are watching this.
yes,
Men will be watching this.
yes.
Ladies, can y'all describe what the inner girl? I know it's the inner child, but what is the inner girl? Like, who is that person?
Okay. So who is she to me? She's the person that loves art. She's the person that loves nature. She's the person that laughs and that smiles, that likes to skate. By the way, all of those are things that I'm reconnecting with. I went skating a couple of weeks ago. It was amazing, right? That was me tapping into my inner girl. She's the person that you first knew yourself to be before you were socialized to think and feel and do these other things. She was that person. But the hurt that she carries, I still carry that too. And I see.
Girl, I'm gonna have to turn my camera off.
I see it manifest now in my life. And sometimes I'm disappointed because I'm like, dang, like you should be further than this. But I know that she still needs encouragement because she's still the person, that doesn't feel worthy. She's still the person that feels a lot of things are her fault that really weren't her fault. So I try to stay connected with her because it's me really connecting to myself and who I really am. But then it's also me knowing that if I heal her, then I'm healing myself and that I can kind of go forward and continue to be a better person. I can continue to do my work and, do the things that I'm here to do. But it's just like I have to carry her with me because she really is the essence and the best part of who I am. I'm sorry about that, y'all.
No, it's perfectly fine. Ali,
No
who is
need to
the,
apologize.
yeah, no, you don't have to apologize. Ali, who is the inner girl? I love what Kim said. Kim, and I got excited because she said that's the person before you got socialized. Who's the inner
Yes,
girl? And to you too, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. I mean, I care about this stuff so much. Like, we got to intervene with these females because they're the primary caregivers, and majority of your trauma is coming from your primary caregiver. So for me, my inner girl, I really couldn't let her out until I came across a masculine man, right? And I mean, it's just being real because I feel safe enough to be myself, to enjoy the things. I can't tell you how. So this is actually something that I still struggle with now. Is I'm always asking him if he's mad at me, and it's like a tick that I go through where I'm like, "Are you mad at me?" And he's always very much like, "No, I don't have any issue with anything that's going on today." And I'm working on asking him less and learning to trust him more, but that really gets in the way of you being able to trust a man. You have to. It is I think vital to a relationship that a woman is in a relationship with a man who she feels that her girl can come out, because you do want to play with your man and you want to be able to enjoy your life, to just find a man that fosters that safe environment for you. But I lost touch with my inner girl for a very long time. I was just straight up in survival mode. I had been taking care of myself since I was in second grade, not financially, but I mean, I was alone a lot. I was a latchkey kid. I grew up in a single mother home. Um, but my inner girl was just somebody who wanted to be allowed to be smart and verbal, and I didn't get to do that.
Wow. Nikki, your inner girl, what does it mean? How did it affect your romantic relationships?
So I would kind of agree with Kim. I think my inner girl was the girl who truly believed that she could do anything. Like before you have so many disappointments, before you leap and fall so many times, she was like the girl who just would climb to the top and hop off and just be free. She was the girl who like thought she was the ish. Okay. And you couldn't tell her nothing. Like she knew she was like it. And you know, I even have a male friend of mine who's known me since, oh, some of you, I did one of my shows with him. Danya, his name now is Danyala, but his name was Danielle back when I knew him. He's known me since I was a teenager, and we were talking one day and he was like, what happened to you? And it like it stopped me. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you used to be like so confident. Like you used to be like you were Nikki. And I was like, dang, I didn't realize that I had begun making myself smaller and smaller until he brought that to my attention.
Wow.
And so my inner girl, the thing that, you know, I'm still working on is I'm still in a way hoping and waiting for a man to look at me the way my uncle looks at his daughter. Like he's my godfather and he's always included me in everything, but you know, it's different. That's my uncle, that's not my father. And to just see their relationship and have grown up side by side with her and just seeing how she's his entire world and there's nothing that he would not do for her. And I'm sure he feels that way about me too, but you know, it's his daughter. And so just the way he looks at her, the way even right now, she could call him right now and say, Daddy, something's I heard a sound. Can you come down here? And he's gone. I've never had that. And just I've always been just wanting someone to look at me the way that he looks at her. And so that's kind of like what my inner girl is like waiting for.
Wow. Sheree?
My inner girl was just fighting to not cry right now when she said what she said.
Yes.
It's my inner girl is very outspoken, very fearless, and very energetic. Oh, I got so much energy. They was talking about me earlier before we came on with me smiling, and that's like I said, that's who I am. I'm energetic, smiling, and fearless. My mama said everybody lost me as a child. If you had me, you lost me. She actually tested to see why everybody was. She just tested. And she one day in the store, she went and hid and see what would happen if someone lost me. I noticed everybody was gone, and unlike other kids, I didn't cry. I just kept playing. Like, oh, they gone? Oh, okay. Like I didn't care. That's just who I was. I stopped being fearless after, like Kim said, that when society happens, right? I stopped speaking. I was very shy, wasn't very energetic, and a lot of things changed. And my inner girl talked to my dad last night, who was never there. And last night he we were just talking and we were just having conversation, and he, we were speaking, and he was like, we're trying to build our relationship because being that little girl, every girl wants to have that. Be able to be daddy's little girl. To be able to, we need that. And that disconnect is really what affects when it comes to our men and dating, because daddy shows us how to be loved by a man. He's the first one. And if he doesn't show us, we got to figure it out. And figuring out on your own as an emotional creature, how do you do that? How?
Mm.
It's how, like, really. So that's why my inner child, when she was speaking about that story about her uncle and seeing that, I remember laying next to my little cousin. And I stay the night over my aunt's house all the time. And when I stay the night, sometimes I pick a little cousin of who I'm going to stay in the bed with. So I remember going to bed the first night, and my uncle had to go to work the next day, and he kissed my cousins on the forehead before he go to work. He ain't got to wake them up. He just kiss them and leave right out. Boy, I just started smelling like, man, I was just happy that they got to get it, even though I didn't.
Is it, so I'm gonna go deeper. So tell me when to stop.
Okay, nah, I'm good because
No,
it's
not
like,
just you, not just you. Everybody, like everybody.
I think
Oh.
these conversations are necessary, and I will hope that everybody will share what they're comfortable with,
Right.
and because it is okay to have something that you want to keep to yourself. It is
Right.
okay
Right.
because that helps with your sanity. So,
Right.
yeah, but boy, I was trying not to cry right there. I said,
So,
woo,
so,
I'm glad I took them right up.
so let me ask this question, and please, if you don't feel comfortable, don't answer it. How is it? How important is it to have a father in your life as a child, in respects to you finding a man in your life?
King, if I could go first again, I'll go and I'll be quick. I won't be before you long, as they say in church, Nikki. I think it is super important to have a father, but just not to have one there to actually have an active one. So my story is a little bit different than some of the ladies on the panel, but I think in a lot of ways it's the same because there were times when I felt my father's presence, but I did
Mm.
not feel his love and support and care. And I think that's just additionally traumatic in a lot of ways because you're like, well, you're here, but you don't talk to me. You're here, but you ignore me. Or you're kind of in and out. You buy me things, but we don't connect. I can't tell you 5 things about yourself that I know personally. You don't help me with my homework. You don't take me to my lessons. And so I feel that we really talk a lot about presence, and I think we absolutely should because it has to start somewhere. But I think at a certain point in time, you have to talk about engagement because the fathers have to engage with their children, they have to engage with their daughters, you have to talk, you have to just get to know each other as people. I can happily say that as I've gotten older, I do feel that my dad and I have gotten closer, but it still hasn't really erase the void that his presence not being there in my formative years has caused, because in a lot of ways it's caused me to continue the cycle.
Mm.
And that's, I think, the part of all of it that breaks my heart because that just was not my intention, right? I was just like, oh no, when I do it, it's going to be like this, it's going to be different. And I'm kind of seeing that it's not. And I mean, all hope is not lost. It's not the end of the world. Things can still kind of be rectified when you know a little bit better. But yeah, I think, having your dad there is the first step. Dad's got to be active. He's got to be hands on. He's got to be involved.
Sheree?
It's very important. Uh, Nikki spoke to it earlier when she was saying that uh I think it was something in regards of, a man not expecting him to do certain things, and because the first man that I had expectations for disappointed me. Yeah, that's important. That's me pretty much. My father was like a yo-yo, in and out, in and out, in and out. He'd be here for 3 months and he was gone for 3 years, then come back next 3 months
Mm.
and be gone for 4 or 5, 3 more years, so that's what he did throughout my life. So I noticed at one point in my life, I allowed men to come and go. So I repeated that same cycle. Daddy gave me an example and I saw it in my life. And it was very it was kind of a hard pill to swallow because I didn't notice it at first until my dad, like, he showed up again, and I think at that point I was fed up of him just coming, because I'm like, you're not about to stay, I know what you're about to do. And seeing that, noticing that another guy tried to come back in, it dawned on me. I was like, okay, I'm tired. I'm tired. And if it I'm glad also Kim is able to give that other perspective, because I think men, they get so wrapped up in their mind of what they think is right and needed and necessary and all this other things. And yes, fathers supposed to be protectors and providers, but um love is important when it comes to examples with relationships with parents. Those examples are important. We can't function without it when it comes to dating and stuff like that. And one day your child is going to be an adult, and one day they're going to have to do the same things that you did. You know what I'm saying? So it's this one is tough, because I just had a conversation yesterday with my daddy, like I
Right.
said. So this one is kind of tough. If I'm flustering on some of my words, it's because I'm thinking about the conversations that me and my father, we're literally in the middle of fixing our relationship. We're in the middle of it right now, and I'm 31. I
Do
done
you,
had,
do you blame him? So I have to cut you off. Do you blame him for the bad relationship that you had?
I blame both my parents. Actually, I don't blame just my father. I
Okay,
blame both of them.
that's a
And
good.
the thing is, though, me and my mother had our conversation a long time ago because she was there, so we were able to fix whatever we had going on early. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, me and her fixed that in my early 20s. We had those riffles in our early 20s. We good. Daddy, since he wasn't there, you coming in late. That's the tricky part. You know what I mean? That's the tricky part. It's kind of easy. It's easier to forgive the parents that were there than the parents that weren't, in my experience. Because if you're not there and I'm mad at you because you weren't there, and then now I have to get to know you. I don't know you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know you. So when it's a parent that is there, okay, I get to see the parallel between, because we are all our parents, even the parents that's not there. Me and my father are realizing the things we have in common. So even with the parents that are there, you just figure out what it is you have in common, what they didn't give you, what they could give you, and start to appreciate what they could give you. And then you're able to just go through that cycle, and y'all talk it out, work it out, cry it out, whatever you got to do, and keep it going. I think that's just it's tough conversations nonetheless. However, I think it's easier when it's somebody you don't know. Now you had your guard up the whole time because of this incident, and now you want me to take it down with the very person that helped build it up. That's a different kind of dynamic. You know what I mean? That's like,
Right.
that's not easy. If I'm supposed to, especially when it's the opposite sex, if because I think Iyanla Vincent said this, and it stuck with me the minute she said it. She said when it's the same sex, it's a respect thing. When it's the opposite sex, it's a heart thing. Because when it comes to my mom, I have to respect you because you are an image of who I can be or going to be. When it's your father, you're the image of who I'm going to marry.
Wow.
So that's, my husband is going to be my heart. So you're a representation of my heart.
Wow.
You get what I mean? So if my heart is broken and you're the one that broke it, who's going to try to fix it? All these other men? I'm already broken a little bit because you did it. Now I gotta, how am I gonna fix it?
Wow. Wow. Ali, you'll go to Nikki to close out. Ali.
We are coming for the mamas right now because,
Okay.
okay, so like a lot of the problems that people have with their father, people need to wake up and smell the coffee. Your mom chose to sleep with a bozo, right? Like make that one clear. That because like you can't get mad at an uninvolved immature man for being who he was always going to be. But I understand that when women are young, we don't really like project that way, especially if you're in love and you're like 15, 16, 17. You're not really thinking about something like that. And I would say too that a father is very important. I only found out that a father was important because I was looking around at the kids that were well-rounded and they had strong fathers, and I was like, that's what's missing in my life. And I do know my father. He just whack. All right, we ain't talking. I don't like him. But you live, you learn. I got to a point where I was like, I am gonna be my own father. And I say that now. I am my own daddy. And I don't want to be that way, but it's true. But I want to say something to women inviting stepfathers in the home. It increases the chance of child abuse astronomically, night and day difference. It's really important that if you're not complete with yourself and you're going to keep trying to date and your children are under the age of 18, that is a huge responsibility. So vet your men very, very well. And there's nothing wrong with waiting until your kids are 18 to start dating again. It's not fun, but it's not about you anymore. It's about the kids.
Right.
That's what I have to say about fathers.
I want to say something. Somebody put on in the chat room, and this is for Nick, Ali. Jody Sif says, but those dads may have to trauma also. So in the beginning, you said, the mother should take some type of onus to picking men who are not worthy, right?
Yeah.
But those men have trauma. How do you feel about that?
It's not, look, like we have so many forms of birth control. Women are saying yes to having unprotected sex with men who are not father-like caliber. Okay, and that's a hard pill for people to swallow because we don't want to look at, maybe our mom made some bad decisions and that's why we're suffering. But we have to be able to talk about mothers. It's just very uncomfortable because they're a protected demographic. And I know plenty of women who their fathers aren't in their lives and they're like, my dad's dusty. And then I tell them, I'm like, well, you know that your mom chose to lay down with him. And they're always like, whoa, they never had that thought their entire lives. So I think it's important to consider. And the thing is, it's about with women. If you really want to change lives, you got to intervene in women's lives. So assortative mating is when you mate with somebody that is similar to you. There's preferences. You can see it with skin tone, personality, politics. If you're a mentally unstable woman, you're going to look for a mentally unstable man. I'm telling you, if you go to a bar, you can see like two people with personality disorders, they will find each other. So that's why we got to get to these young girls' lives so that they can stop choosing poor mates, because that's a problem for life. And I don't know what goes through some of these young girls' minds, but we know that we can get pregnant from unprotected sex, and we have a lot of birth control.
Right. Nikki?
Okay, so my situation was that my father, he just was not there. Like, he lives in my town. It's a small town. Like, I was literally 10 minutes away, but I could go 2 years without seeing this man, getting a phone call, no birthday, no Christmas, no nothing, just not there. Which, and I think, Kim, you were saying it's like you're there, but you're not there. For me, I always used to think as a kid, like, it'd be like if you lived in California or Texas, maybe I could say, okay, that's far, he's not here. But bro, you're 10 minutes away. Like, I could not comprehend having a whole child that you just have no care for. I won a goldfish at the town fair once, and I was concerned while at school whether my goldfish had been fed. So it didn't make sense to me that you could have a whole human being that you were not caring for. But my mom, she grew up in an intact home. Her parents were married their whole life. She's one of 11 children. And she I don't know if this was just her own deflecting, but she and my aunts don't understand. Like, we don't understand what the big deal is. You were never hungry. You were never homeless. You went to private school. You had all the extracurriculars. Like, we don't understand, like, why do you feel this way? And I understand now that they really don't understand. And I had to break it down to them. Who would you be, Mom, if you never saw your father on Christmas? No Christmas morning memories. You've never been tucked in by your dad. You've never had breakfast with your dad. You've never had dinner with your dad. You've never had a birthday. Like, who would you be as a person, as an adult, if your whole life you have nothing? And then that's when kind of like the light bulb went off in my mom's head. Like, oh, I've really been minimalizing what you've been saying you've been going through your whole life. I've been trying to act like it's not that big of a deal because you've never been hungry or homeless. And so we've kind of been like working through, and my mother and I have had that conversation, Allie. I'm like, okay, Mom, he had 4 kids. I'm the youngest. He's not with any of those mothers either. Like, what was that about? Like, what kind of decision making was going on there? But as far as, choosing a mate, and for me, how I realize now it manifested is that I would pick men who couldn't do anything for me. Because if they can't do anything for me, then I'll never depend on them. And if I never depend on them, I'll never be disappointed. So I'll be in control in that you're depending on me. I'm not depending on you, which is a dysfunctional way of thinking because I'm not happy. I'm annoyed that you're depending on me, but being annoyed to me is better than being disappointed, is what is kind of like what my mindset was. So I was just picking men who were not good in that. Basically, people who would never abandon me, I would always have the control to leave them. They would never leave me because they need me. But when I'm done, I can leave you. That is my dysfunction thinking of the men that I was choosing. It was a fear of abandonment. So I would pick people who would never leave me because they were parasites on me.
Right.
So that, which is not good. I wasted years doing that. And it wasn't until late in my 30s that I figured that out. So I would say it definitely affects your mating a lot.
Okay, and we're going deeper because I've been getting texts and they want me to get to the deeper part of these questions. So I'm just scaffolding right now because I don't want to go jump into the fire, right?
I wanted to say something too.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's cool. I know you wanted to say something. I just wanted to bring that up before you got to something else. I wanted to say, because I felt what Ali was saying. I think I'm pretty sure, because I saw her face when I said that I blame both my parents for the situation. I blame both my parents for a reason, because I understand what you were saying when you said that a woman made a choice to lay down with him, right? We have to remember that he made a choice as well, because it men speak of legacy and leaving a legacy and things of that sort. And when you're doing these particular things, you have to be mindful of who you're sleeping with, no matter who you are, because there's consequences. A lot of us speak of sexual, liberation and all of this other stuff. And then but we don't highlight the responsibility of it. So I think that it's important to understand that a man is just as responsible, and also we also understand, if we're speaking from a place where we understand women having these traumas and these things that they have, sometimes the bozo lands on your stoop because daddy was a bozo too. So I think we should just give a little bit more grace, have a little bit more understanding first. You know what I mean? Because two knuckleheads definitely can come together and create another knucklehead. So it just is what it is.
So let's get to the meat of the issue. When we talk about trauma and relationships, right? We talk about trauma and relationship. There's another word that comes up that has a T, and it's called triggers.
Oh.
Not in your current relationships, but in relationships that you deal with as an adult woman, what are some of the triggers that let you realize that you do have trauma from your past? What are some of the triggers within a romantic relationship that help you identify with the traumas that you had in your childhood? Nikki?
Things that make me realize that I have triggers. Well, this wasn't really in a romantic relationship, but that's kind of what made me really realize that something was a little off, because it wasn't from someone who wanted anything from me. I was coming from the grocery store one day, and I didn't pull in because I don't really drive that much, but the car I was in pulled in, and I was taking out the groceries, and I was carrying like 6 bags in each hand by myself. And my cousin, a male cousin of mine, pulled up and was like, "Oh, let me help you. Give me the bags." And I was like, "No, I got it." And he was like, "No, Nikki, give me the bags." And I was like, "No, I got it." And he was like, "Give me the bag." And I was like on autopilot, like, no, I was refusing to be helped, like refusing to give him the bag. And then he really just like manhandled, snatched the bag and was like, "Yo, what's wrong with you?" And when he said that, it was almost like a haze lifted over my eyes. And I realized like I'm I didn't realize that I was doing this. Like I've been doing this in my life, like refusing to accept assistance. And I was refusing to accept this from my own cousin. And he was like, yo, you need to check that. Like get that under control. And that's when I realized, like, oh snap, I had that's some trauma that does that. Like there's no reason why was I like refusing to accept assistance. So that's something that stands out in my mind of like me realizing that there's some issue.
Okay. Kim?
Yeah, so I have a lot. And as I've gotten older, I have recognized them. There are a lot of triggers I have that I've kind of moved past and they're not as triggering. One of them for me, very similar to what Nikki was saying, is hyper independence. And it didn't come necessarily from my dad not being there. It came from me being an only child and having a chip on my shoulder and I'm not trying to whine. I know y'all get the violin out, whatever, but like just having people assume really bad things about me and treat me really poorly because they assume, oh, you're an only child, you're spoiled. Oh, you're this, you're that, whatever. And that caused me to be super overly accommodating, right? Because I'm like, oh, well, people already think that I'm spoiled or that I'm this or that I'm that. So let me just be super over accommodating. So that's another thing. I'm either super combative or super accommodating. It depends on the day. I don't know. I flipped King the bird earlier. So, and then I'm super nice. So you just never know what you're going to get. Also, my inability to take criticism. Like, I'm not really a sensitive person, and I've actually grown past that, which I think is great because it's helped me a lot to take criticism. But like, I just couldn't because I guess just the early criticism that I got wasn't delivered in the way that resonated with me, and so I couldn't take it. So yeah, it's just a lot of life events kind of, and just friendships, conversations, just different times when someone would say something and I would feel like like the air was sucked out of my lungs, and I'm like, what is this feeling? Oh, this is a trigger, let me break this down. So really it's trial and error. A lot of it I uncovered through journaling and just kind of figuring out myself. But yeah, I have a lot of them, and a good majority of them are no longer active because I'm aware. And when I do feel that I'm triggered in my mind, I'm saying, okay, understand what you're going through, push past it. This is a trigger. What does this really mean? Because it's really not about this current situation, it's about something else. You're connecting this to something in your past. You're not connecting this to now. You're not connecting this to this person. What does this mean? Like, I keep sticky notes around me all the time. I always have something to write with because even in those moments, I'll just stop and I'll just have to write it out exactly and kind of figure it out. So, I do want to encourage everybody out there who does have triggers and who is discovering what they are. It's absolutely ways to work around it. You just have to work with yourself and work at your own pace.
Perfect. Ali, then Sheree, and then we're gonna bring Annalisa. Thank you for coming up. You are exceptionally beautiful, Annalisa. Oh my gosh, and you are brilliant. And I got five of the most brilliant people I know, not just women, but people I know on the panel. And thank you for coming up. So, Ali, then Sheree, and then we go to Annalisa. And we're gonna keep it focused on trauma and relationships because that's why we're here for. So, Ali?
I would say that I don't just struggle in my relationship with constructive criticism. I just struggle so much socially, y'all. Like going to college and being conservative, you could see how there's like a contention because colleges are typically liberal. This isn't a political whinge, but it's like I'll be voicing my opinions in class or certain statistics or certain viewpoints. And it's like my throat is tight, my palms are sweaty, my heart rate's increasing. Maybe you guys don't know this. I put it in the chat earlier. So I have CPTSD. It's complex PTSD. It's just like your life was threatened on several occasions. But I've gone to therapy. It makes it a little bit easier, but I think there's only like so much therapy that you can really do. So I find myself struggling with my fiance when he gives me constructive feedback, like almost in tears. I'm hoping that I can get better at it, but it's hard too because people are so quick to be rude because I could be coming from a place of kindness and then people come really disrespectfully to me very quickly, not even knowing like what I've gone through and how close I am to passing out. But that's not like a sob story. It's just y'all were talking about triggers. That's my life, but it happens less often than it used to. So my treatment was effective.
Okay, Sheree?
Can you repeat the question?
We were talking about triggers. What are some of the triggers that you experience in your current relationships that remind you of your traumas?
Well, I can speak a little bit to when a guy would like when a guy would kind of like disappear, as I spoke before, as my father would come and go, I would start to wonder, and I'm antsy. I would get a little antsy sometimes and try to figure out what it is it me or whatever the case is, and I used to get my head about it and things of that sort, and it would trigger me to go in that shell of that little girl that doesn't feel needed anymore, or feels doesn't feel complete, or that feeling that feeling of that big old hole that daddy left. You just be sitting there trying to figure out like why, you know why he's not here, so I think those one of those triggers I had noticed. And then I remember let's speak another. I remember when a guy was helping me out because I was having some financial issues, and the conversation was awkward for me. It was like it was really awkward for me. I received the help, but it was kind of weird, kind of, I guess, because I saw mama be so strong and try to do it on her own as a single parent. So I always kind of had that, and I'm gonna be strong too mentality, and you don't realize how that affects you. And because mama didn't have a guy in the house, you're trying to learn how to do it on your own. So when a guy actually comes in, because you never got to see how a guy's supposed to do it, you don't know what to do. So yeah, I don't know. Those are just some things I guess that kind of trigger. When I get triggered, I go in a shell. So it's a little different. I don't necessarily come out with claws and all of that. I kind of be like lean back and be a little girl.
Right. And Elisa?
Hi everybody.
Hello.
So for me, trauma and triggers, I don't know if you guys went into or sort of made distinctions between developmental trauma and PTSD. If not, we can go into that later. But for me, growing up, triggers, and I think it's important that people understand what a trigger is, right? Because growing up, a lot of times you don't know what you're going through, because truly a trigger is a somatic experience, right? It's not like as you get older you might have an understanding if you go through therapy and you have some introspection, some insight. But when you're growing up, you don't have the language, you don't have the insight. It's all physical. It's a physiological response that you're having, right? So for example, if someone who's been, I don't want to, can I use the word molested?
Yeah.
Okay. So for a person who's been molested, if they're touched in a particular way, they may become extremely agitated. They may feel endangered, but they don't have the memory, right? So a trigger isn't necessarily, you're not going back and having access to the memory. It's a somatic experience that your body is going through. And in the present time, cognitively, you can't really understand it because this person cognitively is not presenting a threat to you, right? This is just a normal person, and maybe you're engaging in a romantic, intimate relationship. But what you see with trauma survivors is they have a fragmented memory. So a lot of times they don't have access to the memories. Their memories are fragmented. They pushed it down. They've repressed it. They don't want to go there, right? And it's a survival instinct. You have to repress it so you can go on with your life. But for me, growing up, I would say things that triggered me. I was very sensitive to body language, tone of voice. stuff like that. It's and I didn't understand why I would become so agitated, right? Like somebody might present themselves. So, for example, someone who's really passive aggressive for me is a trigger. Like if you're passive aggressive, I don't know what to do. I can't reconcile. I don't know how to deal with you. And I realized that that's where I was shaped by passive aggressive people early on in my developmental stages in life. But yeah, I was very sensitive to tone, body language, dispositions, and inconsistencies drove me crazy. And I couldn't I couldn't understand why. You know, if you said you're going to be here at this time, or like things of that nature. But I just want people to understand what a trigger is, and for people who have been truly traumatized, they don't always have the memory, but your body remembers, right? Your body always remembers what you went through. And it's a physiological somatic reenactment or a somatic memory that you're having.
Can you give us an example of that? Because as a man, I'm not familiar with that. How does your body, right, remind you? How does it somatic? You know, we heard of psychosomatic. When you think about something so much, it manifests to your physical form. But how does your body remembers trauma from the past? Can you give us an example, please?
So somatic, soma is the body, right? So that's what somatic is, soma. So in the brain, you have the frontal cortex. That's like the higher thinking brain. That's it's the more complex thinking part of your brain. It's responsible for just the executive functioning. It is prefrontal. But beneath that, in the posterior part of the brain, is your animal brain, right? Your animal brain, that's the oldest part of the brain, and all animals, that they have that in common with humans and mammals. That's the housekeeping part of the brain, right? Go to the bathroom. It's time to eat now. It's time to sleep now. It's time to procreate now. That's what the posterior animal brain is responsible for. And when we experience trauma, the animal brain is activated, because the animal brain is also connected to the amygdala, and it's also connected to the vagus nerve. And all of those things. So the amygdala in the brain, it's like the alarm system, right? So you assess whether or not there's a threat, and if you smell smoke, you act, right? You get the adrenaline pumping. The brain is designed to move the body. That's the function, right? Like I'm talking right now because my brain is moving my body. Right. So when you are traumatized or you're experiencing trauma, your animal brain is activated, your amygdala is hijacked, and you become a terrified creature, right? You don't have that higher thinking ability. In fact, what we see with people who have experienced trauma, when you put their brain on a scan and you analyze it, when they're sort of revisiting the trauma, if you put their brain on a scan, it's parallel to someone who's having a stroke, right? Like they don't have the speech, their frontal lobe shuts down, it goes offline. So and then the posterior, the animal brain, is also responsible for the body, making the body move. So the lower end of the brain and the stem, they have that memory. They remember, because your brain's job is to keep you safe. That's the number one priority. You need to be safe, assess the room for threats. This person's good, this person's bad. So you always have the memory. And depending on the trauma, hold on, my phone's gonna cut out. Hold on.
Okay. No, you're mute. Just hit the mute button again.
So apparently Nikki is single. I don't know if you guys got that.
Right.
I just found out.
Right, you read the chat. Just to be clear, when she gets off of mute, one more minute. I'm sorry. Yeah. So go ahead, Allie.
Oh, I was gonna say, you know what's funny? People don't know the brain body connection. So somebody put in the chat, "The Body That Keeps Score," the book about PTSD, is very good. Like the book is so good to the point that I was able to empathize with a Vietnam soldier who raped a woman. Like that's because it's insane how it goes together. So a lot of women, well, people that suffer from traumatic experiences that they haven't processed, it manifests in your body. And it can be things like you are constantly getting sick, or you have an autoimmune disease, or you have neck pain, back pain, chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that. And I wonder too sometimes, because I have an autoimmune disease, and I have chronic neck pain and things like that. But I noticed that when I had gone to counseling, that a lot of my muscle spasms had gone away too.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is too real, but the people want to understand more about it, but we're not really going to be able to, because the brain is so complex. Like, what is one person's chronic neck pain is another person's chronic fatigue syndrome, is another person's intermittent depression. But it's crazy, y'all, how it can manifest in you. So if you have had a hard life and you have some muscle spasms that just haven't gone away for years, go to therapy. That's probably some of it, because people be stressed out, stiff neck all the time. That is so huge.
Wow. Kim,
Yeah, I'm here.
I want to ask you a question based on what Annalisa said. What are some of the somatic symptoms that you have based on romantic relationships?
Ooh. Okay, so I will say this. Some of this kind of happened prior to romantic relationships, but I think it has affected them. So I just remember, well, let me say this. I can't go into detail about it necessarily, but I do have fragmented memories of things that happened that should not have happened. And so I can't help but to think some of my behavior, especially my behavior in relationships, is connected to those things. And it's interesting because I went for a long time without having memory of it, and it's a lot of different things. And so a lot of things I remember. There are a couple, and I think maybe based on who it was is why I don't remember. It's almost like I have a memory. I can see it in my mind. I can remember the room I was in, what I was wearing, what the other person was wearing, the time of day, everything. I remember like the last thing this person said to me before whatever happened. And it's almost like, you know how you're watching TV and you take the plug and you just unplug it and it goes blank? That's exactly what my mind does about that particular memory. Anyway, but just I remember as a child, if I like felt uneasy, like maybe I told a lie. Like I remember I told a lie about a spelling test or something. I don't know. But like I was physically sick. Like I couldn't eat. I was like throwing up. Like that was just like my body's response to whatever it was that was going on. And I feel the same kind of uneasiness and queasiness now. And I felt it in the past, like in relationships, right? When something's not right, when I have something to say, but like I don't want to say it because I don't want to offend the person, because my time and place filter is broken. If something's going on, I want to talk about it.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't do it in front of
Hold
certain audiences.
on, not to cut you off.
Okay.
Ladies, is that healthy?
No.
I'm asking that. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
It's to a degree.
Is what she just described, not having a time filter, like speaking when she wants to talk about it, is it healthy, or do you have to decompress, get your emotions together, your thoughts together, then talk about it? Is it healthy to talk about it when you feel it?
Oh, the thing with emotions are meant to get something done, right? Like emotions serve a purpose. So I think it depends on the two individuals in the relationship or the friendship. And if both of them sort of have that same kind of response to distress, which is, no, we need to discuss this now. And not in a sort of aggressive or a distressing way. But if both people are like-minded in that way and they need to deal with it, then it's fine. But if you have one person who sort of tends to withdraw, shut down, and those people, you really need to be careful of people who tend to deal and not feel. But if you're dealing with someone who does shut down, who needs time, then you have to respect what they need. It's everyone's needs are different. I'm exactly like her. I'm someone who, let's have a conversation about this. There's so much utility in communication. It doesn't make sense to not communicate even in that moment, right? Sometimes you don't need time. Sometimes something happened. it's not okay. Let's address it and let's move forward. And some people are like, whoa, I'm overwhelmed and I need to take a step back. So everyone's needs are different, but I'm like her.
Right. Allie, Nikki, Sheree, and the reason why I ask this question to everybody, because I'm the type of guy that I need to I need to say let's deal with it when emotions are not involved. Let's table this and come back, right? And because I don't want to say something I'm going to regret, right? So I'm asking ladies, is it triggering for men to do that to women and say, I don't want to hear this right now, relax?
It can be. I think most of the, like, this is what I learned in couples counseling. Well, one, a lot of women just can't take the word relax well. I don't know why they can't take calm down. I don't think that's appropriate because we would very readily tell a man to calm down and that he's doing too much. Like, we got to be a little bit open to something. But I would say, like, explore different phrases, explore different tones, have your man rehearse them, see how your body responds. Because I just recently had to tell my man how to gauge his tone because one tone was eliciting physiological responses from me because I grew up being yelled at by a man with a very deep voice as well. So that's something that you can do. But I would say for some women, they can't let the conflict go because when they were in a child state, they had to vouch for themselves or they were going to face huge consequences. So they don't know how to let an argument go with a man. That's some women. That's not all women. It's just some women that have experienced certain forms of child abuse or, emotional abuse. But my couples counselor did say that when we need to table something for a discussion later, for my man to give me a time. Like if it is, it's 9:30 right now, we get into a little tiff, and then for him to let me know, okay, we're not going to talk about this until 11 p.m. because I had so much anxiety just waiting to talk about it, which look, it's not healthy, but this is trauma and I'm learning. I go to therapy still, I'm going to be in it for a while, but it's worth it if you want to have a positive outcome in life. And I want to be a wife and a mother, and I got to get it together because I'm going to be raising the next generation.
Okay. Nikki?
I see what you're saying. If you're a person who someone immediately pouncing on you with it, if that's going to make you shut down or cause us to not have a productive discussion, I mean, that's probably if you're not going to get to the result that you want, why have the conversation if it's not going to be productive and it's just going to cause more aggravation and more just going back and forth. So for the person who feels like they need to just get it out, like I totally get what that feels like when you have, it's almost like this energy that's palpable that you just need to get out. Maybe there's some other avenues, like whether it be writing, journaling, something to just get those emotions out without shooting them in the face of the other person who's not ready to handle them, because that could kind of start a ball rolling into a situation that could go left. So, I guess you just have to gauge the person that you're with, because even if you're with another person who just wants to get it out too, I don't know if two people throwing things in each emotions and words in each other's face in a heated state, I don't know if that's productive either. So I think everyone needs to understand what their own way of dealing with things are, but then also be considerate and know what their partner or what the person what they can handle, because you don't want to then be triggering that person while trying to not be triggered yourself. You don't want to then become harmful to that person. So I think we just have to know ourselves and know and respect our partners. The same thing, if you know that you being like relax is going to make the person go from 8 to 10, even though it might not be fair, sometimes relax kind of feels like a dismissive comment. It's just kind of like, oh, it's crazy. What do you just go somewhere? Right. And so then that makes people go from 10 to 20. So just let's try to respect one another and try to be as mature about it, as we can, I guess, is what I would say.
Sheree? Oh, and then Anna. Sheree?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the phrase "it's a time and place for everything." I think people need to keep that in mind as well when they're making these choices of whether or not they're going to have important conversations. Of course, conversations are necessary if you want to continue to have a relationship with somebody. However, there is definitely a time and place for certain conversations, especially if you know that it can intentionally get emotional for either party. And then it is difficult sometimes when you're feeling something and that can ignite you having to have to say something, right? So I know that definitely when there was a time when I wouldn't say nothing at all. So when I finally got to the point that I would say something, I was just saying something all the time, and I had to figure out the time and the place. So it was like it's a certain balance that you have to find, because like not everybody is even going to be able to uh, um, receive the information if you're not even giving it with the right tone, or giving it with the right phrase or whatever. You never know how somebody's going to receive what you're saying in the first place. So some conversations definitely need to be thought about the time and the place before you even start talking. So it's only necessary if you're at the right space. If this at that moment, in that moment, and it's the right space, say something. But if you understand that you like at a dinner party or something, and like, okay, baby, and keep it in your file. And when you get home, so,
Anna?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that understanding comes with age, it comes with experience, and it comes with your level of maturity. Certainly when I was older, especially in my interpersonal relationships, it was here and now, right? Like the options, there weren't that many options, but as an adult, you have the understanding and the awareness to know, to assess the situation more appropriately. Like you're not going to be at a grocery store arguing. You're not. I don't think you should do anything publicly, right? There is a time and a space. But when you acknowledge that there's something wrong, it's important that both parties are acknowledging something's off. Let's have a comprehensive conversation about this. I want to hear what you're going through, and I want you to hear what I'm going through. And you kind of schedule it, right? Communication is one of those things. It's paramount. It's so crucial for a relationship. And you get older, you get busy, you have families. Sometimes you have to schedule it in, right? It's like, okay, listen, after we go to the grocery store, or on Thursday after your meeting or my whatever, let's have a conversation, because I haven't, we haven't really reconciled, and I don't want to have those feelings. So it comes with time, it comes with age, hopefully. It comes with therapy in a lot of cases. A lot of people do need they need that cognitive behavioral element or piece, so that they can understand what's appropriate and what's not. Because oftentimes growing up, especially in the Black community, you're growing up in a home where communication is not that. I mean, we communicate with our hands,
Right.
And this is and so we grow up and we learn, oh, so conflict resolution means you throw your hands up, and that's not how the real world operates, right? That's not how adults are supposed to function. So we need therapy to sort of cognitively reframe the way that we handle conflict.
So okay, now let's go there. Trauma bonding, right? Trauma bonding, right? Within trauma bonding, men, I'm speaking for men because I'm only guy on the panel. When we feel, not all men, I'm not speaking for men I deal with, that women weaponize the word love. So if you don't want to deal with some of their trauma or issues or insecurities, then you love them less, or you don't love them at all. Go ahead, jump in, because
I mean, honestly, it's not for everybody. It is not for every man to be with a mentally unwell woman. Like it's hard work. And especially if it's a marriage for the rest of your life, like you have to be kind of okay with that. But I mean, I think trauma bonding can get a bad reputation, but I think sometimes people gravitate toward people that have things in common, and sometimes that can be healthy. But like, I can't expect every man out there to be willing to deal with like what I have going on in between my ears. I feel very fortunate that my partner is supportive, but it is hard, like I feel for him.
Okay, sorry, for clarification, what was the question or the comment?
the question was trauma bonding in regards to relationships. Men, at least the men I deal with, we always say that women tend to weaponize a love. If you don't love them with all the issues or how they come in, then you don't love them at all, right?
Well, this is my position with respect to trauma bonding, and I think it's important that let's be realistic and honest, especially within the context of Black people in the Black community. Everybody's coming in with baggage. Everyone is coming in with psychological, emotional, sometimes neurological baggage, the physical, whatever it is. Everyone has their issues. The way these issues manifest themselves can look different. The way that these issues, like the affect, can look different. But let's understand here and now that everyone is coming in with issues. Whether or not it's fair for men to say, "Hey, I don't want to deal with your," like, not everyone is meant for everyone, and trauma bonding is not, it's not a good thing. It's not about having, you can have things in common with someone that isn't rooted in trauma fundamentally, right? Trauma bonding is essentially when you seek out partners who have the same characteristics or personality structures as people who abused you in your early childhood, right?
Wow.
This is not something you want to seek out, and this is why you need therapy to mitigate your dating choices. And this is why you see in the Black community or in communities that have experienced a lot of like chronic abuse, you see a lot of women dating the men that, or a man that, I don't want to say the R word, but who exhibit similar characteristics, right? Like, trauma bonding is not a good thing. But the only way to break the bond, honestly, is therapy. Like, I have to be honest with you. It's expensive. It's arduous. It's very difficult to hold the mirror up and say, you know, things happened to you as a child and they weren't okay, but you're okay today. So how can you move forward and have positive, meaningful relationships and change your interpersonal sort of defense mechanisms or whatever it is? But no, trauma bonding is not a good thing. There are ways to mitigate choosing the wrong mate, the wrong partner, the wrong friend, because it's not just a sexual thing. Like, sometimes trauma bonding is same sex, same gender. Even your girlfriends can have a toxic personality, but maybe it reminds you of an aunt or a sister or someone that you loved and you were close to. But yeah, therapy. I'm the biggest proponent of an advocate of therapy, especially with respect to trauma. You can't do it on your own. You cannot, especially if you're dealing with complex PTSD, or I would refer to it as developmental trauma. You need therapy. Otherwise, you're going to white knuckle it. You're not going to ever have meaningful relationships. And for men, I think you should have a show where it is for men, because I'd love to go over sort of the manifestations or the dynamics, because it may look different, but it's just as detrimental, and they're just as empty, they're just as lonely, and they have and at the core is a very helpless and hurt human being on both genders.
Well, because I'm from Brooklyn and we known for stealing and robbing, I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to use it for tomorrow's topic. Thank you. I stole this idea from Allie, so I'm going to steal this one from you. That's from Brooklyn. That's what Brooklyn do. But Allie, you said something about assortative mating in the chat room. What exactly is that? And because you said it when Anna was explaining trauma bonding, but what do you mean by assortative mating? And then we're going to go to Kim and Nick and Sheree.
Assortative mating is what I was talking about earlier when I was saying that some women are not choosing suitable men to have unprotected sex with, full well knowing the consequences, okay? And people can get mad, but at the end of the day, it's the children that suffer. I understand parents are human. So what I was trying to say is that if you are mentally unwell as a woman, and the same thing for men, you're gonna seek out somebody who's mentally unwell too. It's not necessarily on purpose; it just happens. But assortative mating is other things too, like I'm Puerto Rican. If I wanted to mate with another Puerto Rican male, or I'm conservative, I wanted to mate with another conservative. That's what that is. The point is that if you want to attract a well-rounded person, then you have to be well-rounded, which is exactly what Annalisa is saying. The only difference of opinion is just like, I think that there's a spectrum of trauma bonding. I think sometimes you come across somebody who's had similar hurts. And I think sometimes that's good, because who else can understand that besides somebody who's gone through it? Now, if y'all are just sitting in the house and just being alcoholics and crying every day and resorting to domestic violence, like, okay, don't do that. But it's the same thing where veterans, they come across somebody else who has been to combat and they're like, oh, like we've had similar experiences. So, I mean, that's just my perspective on it. But assortative mating is typically the problem. That's why we have to intervene in young women's lives, because you can tell Richard Tremblay, he's done research on interventions for quarrelsome pregnant teen moms, because he wanted to see in 2 generations time, would it be better? And it was. And those children turned out to be less aggressive, specifically the males. So yeah, that's all I got about that.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, of course.
I don't understand it. I don't really understand the need for conception. Men choose women and women choose men, right? Like these are decisions that are made symbiotically. It's a collaboration. It's not, you're not dragging someone, taking them to the back of the shed and forcing them to inseminate you or to impregnate you. It doesn't work like that. So the onus needs to be, the responsibility needs to be placed on both parties. I don't like the idea that women are just indiscriminately choosing these men that they're conscious are not going to be men, especially when they don't even have an idea of what a man is. How are they able to, how can they differentiate between this is what a man should do when they've never been, like, they don't, in most cases, these are women who don't have fathers, who have never been shown the sort of the role of a father, of a leader, of a provider. I think it's irresponsible to say, hey, you know, you women are choosing ain't-ish men and it's your fault. And like, men are choosing women as well. Men are also choosing not to wear protection. We're not responsible for their sexual organs. We are not responsible for their reproductive organs. They are. They have something to lose, and there's something at stake for men as well. I think that women, Black women specifically, do need to have more discernment. I think that they need to be more selective. I think that I really think that they should just close their wombs off entirely until they deal with their self-esteem, until they deal with the trauma, until they deal with the pain. And I think that Black men, if we're going to talk about a group of people who need therapy, it's Black men. It's Black men. So Black men are running around doing the same things that Black women are doing, but we're not holding their feet to the fire because they're not there. Like, and I'm not okay with that, right? They're still culpable. They're still responsible. They're still choosing people as well. They're still choosing women and wombs to impregnate. So and that is not, if we're talking about what trauma bonding is, it's not having things in common with someone who's experienced something adverse in childhood or through combat. That's different, right? That's having something in common. Trauma bonding is when your relationship is characterized by the same trauma that you experience. When that person is re-traumatizing you, that's a trauma bond. So I'm not talking about, hey, listen, King and I, we had a similar childhood. We have things, you know, commonalities and those things, those are connecting attributes for sure, or experiences, but that's not the core of it, right? The core of it is that we're both adults who respect each other. We have other things that are rooted in more positive experiences in common as well. Trauma bonding fundamentally is rooted in trauma. So that's what's connecting you. It's not that, oh, we have things in common, we both went to war, or, you know, you had a similar childhood. It's you're abusing that person, they're abusing you. And you guys are engaging in that kind of relationship and that kind of dynamic because of what you experienced as a child. So I just want to make those distinctions clear. And
you have a rebuttal, or I could go to Kim and Nikki.
Oh, I mean, there's not much to rebut. Like, here is my thing. Women control 100% of who is born. Okay? Like, and it's young girls like me who suffer from poor mate selection. I'm not here to I mean, I understand that, like, men, you know, they do stuff, but like all they have is like a condom. You know what I'm saying? Like, women have 30 plus forms of birth control and access to termination of pregnancy. Like, y'all, like, holding women accountable is not misogyny. Okay. And I understand too that, like, men are choosing these women, but if people were to look at how women operate sexually versus men, I mean, how men and women operate sexually, you know, you wouldn't be that surprised at, like, these outcomes. Women need to be provided the tools to exercise some discernment here. And I understand that there's accountability on the men, but look, if he was a loser to begin with, what makes you think he's going to change because you're having his child? My father didn't care. My father is the same man he was before I was born. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I understand that it hurts, but I think we also need to address that there are some structures in place where we're not allowed to critique women. And who does it hurt at the end of the day? It's going to be the kids. And I'm here to critique men too. Don't get me wrong. You know, I got to scroll. Okay. But I still think that the onus of pregnancy is going to be women because they control 100% of who is born.
Okay. So I don't have an, it's not the issue isn't critiquing women. The issue is making sure that you're allocating appropriately the responsibility on both parties, and you're not. And that's the issue that I take umbrage with. I have a problem with that. So when we're talking about women and birth control options, all of those birth control options have very adverse, in some cases, life-threatening effects, whereas condoms have none, right? So we're not even going to compare birth control. It's not comparable. One has adverse detrimental effects to a woman's biology, anatomy, and even sometimes, in some cases, her ability to be able to reproduce in the first place, right? So we have to be careful. Condoms have absolutely no. Does anybody know what adverse or seriously adverse side effects a condom might have for a man? And another issue that I have is so when we're talking about men who are or critiquing women, the world critiques women. So we don't need, like, listen, this is not a matter of, hey, you're not holding her feet to the fire. When a woman stays to raise her child after the bum leaves, she's holding herself accountable. You can't hold her any more accountable than that. She has the option to leave as well. He had the option to leave, he left. She also has the option, she stayed. That's what accountability looks like, literally. So we don't need to hold her feet to the fire. Does she need to learn? Does she need to evolve? Does she need to grow from the experience? Does she need therapy? Does she need love? Absolutely, she does. She needs insulation. The world is critiquing specifically Black women, where they're at the bottom of the bottom, and they're not being provided any protection, any love, any insulation from the Black men in their community because they're baby mothers, because they're the ones who chose Pookie and Ray Ray, because they're the only ones who are engaging in the mate selection. We don't need that. It's disingenuous for you to come up here and say, hey, we can critique women too. We absolutely can, but are they not being critiqued? Does the world not see Black women the way that Black men see Black women? Or at least there's a perception of Black women, or a perception of a caricature of a Black woman. She's a baby mother. She's a hood rat. She's a Shaniqua. She's a weavy wonder. The list is infinite. We don't need women, specifically white women. We don't need women.
Excuse me?
To contribute to any degradation, or you could call it a critique, but in reality, she's choosing him.
White now.
He's choosing her.
Okay.
That's the reality. Like, can we be honest? We can, if we're gonna critique.
You're
women,
like attacking my character. I mean, you guys don't know.
Character. I don't know you. It's not your character. But I'm saying, in the Black community, when we're dealing with Black women, we don't need white women to jump on the Black woman be accountable bandwagon. Black women are holding themselves accountable. They're getting educated. That's also accountability. They are number one in entrepreneurship. That is also accountability. It's not necessary, is what I'm saying. It's a gratuity that is unnecessary.
So Anna, so this, just for clarity, are you saying white women in general because she's Puerto Rican?
It doesn't matter if there's colorism, okay? I can't have a valid opinion because I'm Spaniard. Sorry.
What does that mean? Someone's Puerto Rican.
No. I think no.
It means I'm African and I'm Spaniard and I'm Native American. That's what it means.
Spaniard is in Spain and Spain is in Europe. It's white. It's European. It's white.
And I wasn't even talking about a Black woman. And I'm sure I wouldn't be like.
No,
come on
my
now.
understanding of this conversation with respect to trauma is, contextually speaking, within the Black community. So if you're not talking about Black women, then I apologize.
He got the idea for the show from me. Like, sorry? I made an entire video. The topic today is coming from content that I made. Okay, where I talked about. Annalicia, like, you called me disingenuous.
I thought we were talking about the Black community. I'm not really concerned as much with other communities. I work, like, that's my purview. It's the Black community. It's Black men, Black women. I'm not concerned with what other communities are doing necessarily when it comes to trauma. But I thought that in the context, we're talking about the Black community and Black women. So if we're talking about all women, regardless of nationality, race, well, not nationality, regardless of race, then I can apologize.
No. What I'm going to say is that, I love to talk about all women, but because I'm conversation with King, most of my audience, predominantly my audience, is Black. So we definitely focus on that. But I was considered Allie Caribbean Puerto Rican. I thought she was part of the community.
No,
But
this is
maybe-
my
But
whole
Puerto
life.
Rican
My
is a
whole life,
nationality.
I've been too light skinned, even though I was raised by a black man, even though my brothers are black. But because I'm light, it's a problem. That's rude.
I'm a light skin. I'm light skin as well. So that's not.
Not enough.
It's not because of your skin. I'm just. You're Puerto Rican. That's the nationality. But you're white. Are you not white?
So now we're gonna argue semantics. Yes, if you want to go by textbook definition, I'm white, but that's not how I grew up.
Listen, everything's okay. Everything is okay.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
I'm not indicting you because you're white. I'm just saying that there are different implications when white women are piling on the hold black women's feet to the fire train. The implications are different, and I have an issue with it, and I'm going to say it.
Okay, I have an issue with being called disingenuous. Like, if y'all look at my channel, look at my content. I care about women.
I didn't say you. I said having that conversation specifically is disingenuous, and it takes away from what we're trying to build. I'm not saying you're disingenuous. I don't know you as a person. It's not an indictment on your character because of your race. Like, it's not that serious. I'm just someone who's I'm going to stand on behalf of black women. That's me. I don't really care who has a problem with it.
Okay, Kim, Nikki, and Sheree.
I mean, so I don't have necessarily a comment on trauma bonding because that is not my bag of expertise per se. I have seen it. I feel like I hear the term being used a lot, and I don't necessarily know if like it's actually used accurately. I think some of these terms from psychology have been popularized and we just say it, and I really don't think we know what we're talking about. But something I did want to say, I did find the conversation between Annalicia and Allie interesting as far as the whole thing of holding women accountable for who they mate with, so on and so forth. And I mean, I think we could just have an entire show kind of based on that. But what I guess I don't like is just kind of like the blame game. It's almost like the egg or the chicken, right? Which comes first? Is the man more accountable? Is the woman more accountable? I really think in that instance, you have to look at who actually holds the burden of life, right? And I don't like to call life a burden, but something my mom always told me, she would always say, mama's baby, daddy's maybe, right? And she was just like, as a mother, you always have that responsibility. Now, you would hope the man would stand in, you'd hope you choose a man that would, but if he doesn't, it's still on you. You're still left holding the bag. And so I think that whole idea of women being left holding the bag, that is the evidence of accountability. It's really starting to irk me when we have the conversation, hold them accountable, hold them accountable. Like, there's only so much that I can do to hold somebody accountable. And it's very little, right? What's going to hold you accountable is the natural consequence for whatever it is that you're going through. That's your accountability. So to Annalicia's point, rearing the children, having to love them, having to step up, having to be mom and dad and grandma and whatever else. To me, that's the accountability. And having this pitchfork against women, oh, you're a baby mama, oh, your SMV is low, oh, whatever, like that just doesn't seem to help. Now, constructive criticism, yes, that's fine. But what I also think that we're forgetting is that the women who end up mating with men who don't end up being what they need to be, they're not all dense women, right? All of them, we always like to say, oh, well, you knew, oh, there was a sign. Like, hindsight is 2020. You can maybe say that now, maybe if you fine tune it, but let's really not act like there are not bad guys. There are not guys with duplicitous intent that are looking like good guys. Back in the day, it was easy to see the bad guy, right? He was the guy with the long hair. He was the guy in the leather coat. He skipped school. He smoked. Like, that was 50 years ago. Now these guys are actually parading as good guys. I've heard so many stories about men like hanging around women for months just to sleep with them and dump them. I mean, just super freaking, we have one on the panel, just super freaking crazy, right? So I think when we kind of play that blame game, we're also acting like these men are showing all these signs of negativity ahead of time. And to me, that's indicting against women because it's like, okay, well, yeah, of course, you shouldn't mate with somebody that's showing all these signs. But let's just not be so oblivious and have our heads in the sand to think that like there are not guys out here that are going to be like, yes, I'll be there for you and the baby. You know, do you want to have a kid? This, that, and that. And then they get you pregnant and then you don't see them again. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Could I add something? I'm so annoying. I'm sorry. Can I add something to that, what she said?
Yeah.
So another thing with respect to ultimately who populates the earth, who brings life into the world. That's it's 100% women. And now we're seeing movements where Black women specifically are saying, we're done. We're no longer going to create and procreate with you and create these Black children that you will inevitably hate and not rear and not provide for. So you're seeing this more and more. And there have been times throughout history where Black women specifically, they sort of had this in the back of their mind. So you have to understand how socialization sort of plays into decisions that people make. We make the decisions that we make 100,000%. But when Black women are aborting Black babies, they are the most nefarious group of people on the planet, right? And the first people who are going to come after them are Black men, right? You don't love your babies, you're killing your babies. Black women aborted 1 million babies in this year, this quarter, whatever it is. So it's a catch-22. It's a catch-22, and I'm not going to subscribe to it, right? We can break it down, right? We're complex enough and intelligent enough to really analyze this critically. So it's a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword. So, and you can't have it both ways, right? If you're saying, hey, the burden of life is ultimately in your hands, and that when women are saying abort, mission abort, you can't then cry about Black women not loving their babies. You cannot then cry about Black women killing babies. You can't have it both ways, right? It's like, okay, if you don't want the baby, that's your choice. We're not rearing them anyway. We're not providing any outlets or programming to rear the ones who have, like, you can't have it both ways. And what I would also like to say with respect to something that she said earlier, it's going to come to me 1 second. Maybe you'll have to come back to me. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. It's like, yeah, the onus is on women to bring life into the world. But when we choose not to, we're vilified. We become a nefarious, malignant creature. We have the scarlet letter, like it's a problem. So creating Black children is a problem. Aborting Black children is a problem. Like, you pick a lane, right? And another thing I want to say, especially within the Black community, and since we're talking about trauma, right? It's difficult to expect women to have to sort of know how to weed out the psychopaths or the antisocial degenerates from the good Black men, right? From Black men who are ultimately going to stay and raise their children. It's extremely difficult because these Black women are growing up in homes where abuse is pervasive, abandonment is pervasive, so they become desensitized to these things. So it's hard to know what to look for, right? It's not, you don't pick someone and say, oh, you're going to leave, that's fine. That's okay. You're picking someone with the expectation and the hope that they're going to do what they're supposed to do. Like, no woman is consciously saying, no, I want him to leave. But when you grow up in an environment that is dangerous and that is pervaded by chronic abuse and neglect, it's very difficult to weed out the good from the bad, right? The bad sometimes becomes the good sometimes becomes the bad. That's ultimately what ends up happening. And in order to mitigate that or remedy that, therapy.
Well, therapy as an individual, and I'm a man, so correct me, ladies, as an individual is very effective. But as a group, a collective, a community, put this word called lystrata. I know the alum of Wellesley knows what that means.
Did you hear me say it?
No, never heard you say it.
Lystrata.
Lystrata. So if you're familiar with this word, like, I don't know how to pronounce it, part of my list, but I definitely know what it means. It started with the Athenian women when they wanted to, it's basically a sex strike, when they wanted to stop war. And it was recently done by Liberian women when they wanted to change policies in Liberia. I heard through Ali right now, there is a movement of women closing their wombs. Like, no, we're not producing anything with certain men. And I remember Ali said, you know, it's basically the onus of the woman because sex, if you close your legs, don't have kids with certain men, right? If you don't want certain results, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Ali, right? So with that being,
You're wrong. You're
no,
wrong.
no, I'm saying what she said. I'm repeating what she said. That's all. So what happens is, based on that particular concept and what happened through history, women do have more power than they might seem, in my opinion, but what the world might seem. They have power to change policy. They have power to change the course of history through their choices in sex. So is it safe to say that Ali might have a point? And this is just a conversation. I'm not saying I agree, but is it safe to say? Because history shows it. Yes, go ahead.
I think the consequences of making the bad choice are heavier on the woman than they are on the man. But I don't think that means the onus of the choice is only on the woman just because the consequences of a bad choice are heavier on her. Because what I see in my practice is young men coming in complaining about my baby mama crazy. My baby mama won't let me see my kid. My baby mama threw a brick through my window. My baby mama's harassing my new girlfriend. And it's like everybody in town knew she was kind of tick, tick, boom for years. And you still chose to plant your seed on that ground. That was your choice. But I never hear anyone holding men accountable for where they choose to plant their seed. It's always you're accountable for who you open your legs to. But you're an adult thinking male. You're accountable for where you shoot. Like we're all accountable for the choices that we make. It's just that the consequences of a poor choice are immediate and sometimes life altering, sometimes life taking for a woman because a woman could die in childbirth. And so when I'm in court, and I don't know how many of you have been to child support court, but it's embarrassing. You see men, and it's not like one or two men, it's the courtroom full of men. And some of these people have 10 kids by 9 different people. It's not uncommon for someone to have 4 kids by 4 different women. They don't know the ages of their kids. They don't know all the names. They don't know birthdays, nothing. Just like I said before, Johnny Appleseed, just spreading seed everywhere in all kind of ground. And I feel like if you could have 10 kids by 9 different women, there was nothing holding you accountable. Society's not holding you accountable. You're not holding yourself accountable. You don't have your 30,000 in arrears on child support. You got your new baby mama here to bail you out, to purge your arrears. And it's just, I think everyone, it's not about it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Everyone needs to be taking accountability for themselves. It's not my job to tell you to take accountability for you or yours to tell me what I need to do with my body. Everyone should be we're all making bad choices out here. Everybody. So I think we all should be in control of reproduction. Like I don't think we respect it. I don't think we respect the process of engaging in an act that's going to bring life. I think that's the main problem. We don't respect it. We think of sex as just, oh, I'm about to get one off. It's a very bestial kind of animalistic way of thinking about reproduction. Like you are literally planting your consciousness in another human being.
Wow.
You know, like I want the best seed in my soil. You should want the best soil for your seed. This is not just a physical thing. Like I think our culture, our community has really got to start vibrating higher when it comes to sex, sexual activity, and reproduction as a whole.
Wow. And let me say something to that, to the women have power, because I absolutely agree. Women possess a lot of power and we possess a lot of energy. Absolutely. Right. If we do not give men sexual access, because if we're going to be honest, a man's sole purpose and desire is women. That's it. Right. And even psychologists, sociologists, scientists, you can see it in nature. A man's sole purpose is to find a mate and provide for their mate and their young offspring. That is like one of their sole purposes in life. That's the driving force. So if we deny access, of course there's going to be a problem. But men also have power, right? You have diabolical probably the most degenerate men, creating artificial wombs and sex bots and all kinds of technology because they don't like the idea of women having this type of power. They're men. They don't want women to possess power. Absolutely not. So as technology advances, men are going to make sure that they're going to leave their thumbprint, on some of these technological advances. They're going to try to take back some of that. They're going to try to usurp some of that power. Absolutely. But as women, deny access denied, mission abort. Like I absolutely agree that those should be women's priorities, right? Like, what are you looking for in a mate? Is he gonna build for himself and his offspring or his child or you? Is he gonna provide for you? Like, looks are not as important. I don't get really stuck on looks, but what about the character of the man, right? Does he have morals? Does he have values? Because money doesn't necessarily mean that that you're a good person. Like, you can't really make that correlation. You have a lot of people actually who are in the 1% are the most degenerate, are the most deviant. Let's be honest, and they have the money. They can be. You can't really say anything to them. But yeah, the last thing I want to say is, I hate the idea that open legs means baby. I don't like that. And I think it's sort of a misnomer to say your legs are open, baby, right? Like, my legs are open right now and I'm not pregnant, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to use your organs.
I'm sorry to laugh. I'm sorry. That was
like, your bodily fluids have to leave your body and go into another person's body. Like, this is conception. This is biology 101, right? I don't like the idea that open legs automatic. Is there a risk? Of course there's a risk, but it shouldn't. Only in the Black community, it automatically means baby. Oh, your legs are open, you're pregnant, you're a baby mother. But in the real world, there's a risk. But that we shouldn't always draw the correlation or causation with open legs. I really don't like hearing it. It could be semantics. Maybe if we use a different term. But open legs should not mean baby. Like, there's a risk. There's always a risk. Even when you use contraception, there's a risk. But like, you have to go through the act of squirting your DNA in her. And that's you. That is you. That is your anatomy. It is your body. It is your sperm. That is conception. Conception is not legs wide open. Conception is your DNA leaves your body and enters mine. That's conception. Like, I don't like the idea or the assertion that open legs means baby. I don't think that it should mean that. I think that we should change that in the Black community. And I think that men and women should practice sexual discipline, absolutely. But put a condom on. Put a condom on. Do it in your hand.
Yeah, I don't wear condoms. But listen, I don't listen, but I don't have any children. Let me tell you why I don't have any children, because I just don't sleep with anybody, right? I'm very selective.
You're gonna get trapped like Drake. We're gonna be calling you Cholula Poppy.
Right. No, I'm 41. I don't have any kids. I don't sleep with just anybody. I'm very selective, and when I do have a Olympian gold medal pulling out, so I'm all right. But at the end of the day, I don't, and not to joke of the matter, but I'm being honest. I feel like I will, if I'm I only have sex with women I'm in a relationship with, so I don't do that. I get tested. Currently, I'm negative for everything this past 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm good. So I always get tested. I don't do that. But she has a point, which is that if you don't want to have kids, do what you can. And women, if you don't want to have kids, you have your options as well, right? So I think that I do both sides.
So, additionally, Annalicia, to your point, I support exactly what you're saying. And I think that misnomer in the Black community, that is why at one point, and I don't know if it's still the fact, that like Black teens had a super high rate of pregnancy because of the lack of information. It's pretty much just like, you open your legs, you're going to get a baby. And I'm always telling people, like, biology is real. If you look at it, there really are only certain days out of the month that a woman can get pregnant. Like, it just, there are certain days that just, no matter how open your legs are, it can't happen. And so I think that needs to be like an extension. I mean, your legs could be like this. And like, if it's not the time that you're ovulating, before or after, it's not going to happen. So I think just that tiny little,
that's my trick. We stay away from ovulation. We stay away
That's
from
it.
ovulation.
That tiny little bit of information, I think, is really what can give people more power. I'm all about information and solutions, right? So I mean, and I'm gonna and I know that you ladies know this, but just to everybody else, like, women know when you're ovulating. Men know when your woman is ovulating. Know before, know the exact day, know after. Also, a little tidbit, you guys, read the fine print on Plan B. Plan B stops ovulation. So if you were to take it after, it could possibly interrupt implantation, but that's not really what they market. They market it stopping your ovulation. So if you were to have unprotected sex, risky sex, whatever, after you ovulate and you take Plan B, it's a very high chance that it's not going to work. I just want to drop that game for y'all. I don't know if y'all read the fine print, but that's exactly what I read. Now, it could stop you. You could take it. It might stop the embryo from implanting if it actually, the egg and the sperm has combined. It might work, but that's not really what they market. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, it's just about awareness, and it's about timing and knowing your body, because I think when we do this whole keep your legs closed thing, we are also demonizing sex, and we shouldn't do that.
Wait.
No. I agree, Annalicia. It isn't. But what I'm saying is people tend to use it, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Hold on.
I agree with her. Hold on, King. Hold on. I just want to say one last thing. When we're talking about fertility, men are fertile 365, 7 days. Control your fertility, men. If it is a problem, why don't you organize and collaborate and create a birth control pill for your damn selves?
Right. I think
you are fertile every single day of your life. Although your virility and all that, your sperm gets bad as you get older, but you're fertile every day. Do something. Control your fertility, man. How about that?
So here it goes. When I hear women say close your legs, I don't think I hear what y'all hear. I hear abstinence, right? That's what I hear. That's just me. I don't attack me, right? But another thing also, this leads on to a great topic that comes back to the main topic: trauma and relationships. Woman, do you know other women that have children just to, you know how they say, to correct the generational curses of their forefathers or foremothers? Do they have children to help them deal with their own personal trauma?
You're saying that they consciously said, I'm going to have a baby just to break the generational trauma and cycle?
I want to say that, but it's a spectrum. Some people say that, which is extreme, and some people say, you know what, I'm having this child, and I'm having this child just having a baby, not to go through what their trauma was, or to extend the trauma. I think children are an extension of the trauma, and I believe that. I don't know if I'm wrong. I'm asking you: do women have children to extend this trauma or to stop this trauma? Because people in the Black community, we do hear this. Yo, I'm going to be this. I'm going to stop. This generation stops right now with my child, right? Or you know what? I want to continue this particular habit. But I heard it many of times.
So you're saying that you've heard women say, I've been traumatized. I'm going to have a baby to traumatize my baby?
No, to stop the trauma. And is that healthy?
Oh, well, here's the thing about people in general. Because again, I understand that this conversation about women and trauma, but if we're talking about children, we can talk about everybody. Everyone, the idea of having children is, and this is among all races, all classes. And there's a lot of research to bolster what I'm saying, or to bolster the point. The idea is that every generation does better than the last. That's the idea, right? That's the goal. That's the aim. And in most cases, that is what happens. You can go back and look. That's what studies will purport.
Okay, hold on. That's what I meant. So why are the mothers putting the weight of correcting that particular trauma on the child? You get what I'm saying? Well, my child's going to go to college, but none of us went. You're putting the weight of your trauma or the correction of your trauma.
First of all, having children can be an extremely revelatory life experience, because a lot of times having kids, you can see and understand yourself through the child, right? And you can see how, and you can understand why you turned out the way that you did versus what you're going to do differently and create a different trajectory for your own child. I don't understand. I don't see that. I don't see that. I see a lot of people who are well-intentioned. I see a lot of people who understand that what they experienced was adverse, was wrong, was traumatic, and they want to do better for the next generation. What I often see in practice, or what I often see clinically, or like at work, they don't have the tools. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the information. We don't talk about trauma in the Black community. Trauma is like this fictitious, like like a storybook. We don't really even understand trauma, right? There are different forms of trauma. Depending on the age that you experience trauma, the effect is going to be different. Your outcome is going to be different. So I think that's kind of two different arguments or two different conversations. I see a lot of men and women who say, I went through this, I'm going to do better. Do they know how? Do they have the information? Do they have the knowledge? Or the
Anna, I hear them say what you say, but I also hear them say, I went through this, but my child is not going to go through this.
Right, that's everyone's goal. Anyone who has children, because most parents want to be good parents. Like that's the reality. Most parents want to be good parents. The line of delineation, or sort of the shift in paradigm, is when you don't know what it means to be a good parent because you've never been exposed to good parenting, right? An example that I'll give you is what we tend to see in psychology. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the ACEs study, adverse childhood. Okay, so children who are reared in an environment in which they're loved and they're cared for, they tend to go out in the world and they tend to believe that people are loving and caring, like that, because their early experiences, those experiences shaped them. It shaped their personality structure, it shaped their character, and it shaped the way that they see themselves in the world and the way that they see the world interacting with them. So when you have a child who doesn't have access to that love, who is not raised in a loving, caring environment, they grow up and they're very suspicious of the world. They don't like to collaborate. They're very antisocial. They can be very aggressive. They get agitated very quickly. Does that mean that when they have kids, they're that they don't want to be good parents? No, they probably want to be good parents. They don't want their kids to have that experience, but those experiences shape them. So unless they go through therapy, unless they educate themselves comprehensively, more than likely there's going to be some residual trauma that they do inflict upon their children unknowingly and unconsciously. And it's not because they want to, it's just because they don't have the information. They don't have access to therapy or medication. So I don't really understand. I don't know anybody who said, like, I don't maybe I don't understand what you're trying to say, but no, I don't see that.
What, anybody on the panel, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Nikki, you're on mute.
In my experience, I think I've seen people who, because of their past and feeling like they grew up in a family where people didn't really love them the way they want to be loved, they have children in hopes of having, like, okay, this child is going to be the one thing that, instead of thinking of it as it's my job to love this child, they think of it as this child is going to be the thing that loves me.
Right.
I don't have a baby, so I have someone who unconditionally loves me. And that doesn't always turn out right, because kids can be selfish and it doesn't sometimes turn out to be the romanticized situation that they thought it would be. And then also in my working with parents who are having their children removed and placed in foster care and oftentimes having their parental rights terminated, we would see this phenomenon of women who have had their rights terminated to 6, 7, 8 children. Like, they keep getting pregnant and they keep having children. And it's like, when you talk to them, when I would talk to them as my clients, like, look, what is going on? This is your 7th termination. Like, that's bonkers. They would just, cry. I've got to get it right. I want to prove to my family that I can do this. I want to prove to the world that I can get my stuff together. I can get off drugs. I can have a stable home. I can do this. So having children was almost like a way of them continually trying to prove that they were capable. But like Annalicia said, a lot of them just didn't have the tools and just grew up in horrible conditions and just could not get it together, but they would just keep trying by continuing to have children.
I have to say that I also see that a lot. I also see men and women. But the thing about that is, so the brain's capacity to compartmentalize is amazing, right? Like the brain as an organ is amazing. So these are women that have never ever addressed. They haven't even come close to dealing with their trauma. So they're able to compartmentalize. They don't understand that they're having children to sort of reconcile with some sort of traumatic event that occurred in their
Right.
childhood. They don't understand it. Right. Cognitively, they don't understand it sometimes. Consciously, unconsciously, subconscious, like there's no memory. There's no knowledge of that because they compartmentalize, and you have to compartmentalize sometimes to actually continue living your life in a
Right.
productive, functional way, or even just to stay alive, right? It's like, so yeah, no, I absolutely see women who have a lot of children, but they don't have the skills to have the children in the first place, to deal with the children. They don't have the skills or the wherewithal to really deal with themselves because they've never dealt with their trauma. I need people to understand that this is not women who are, they're not evil, nefarious women, right? Like these are women who want to be, most parents, what we see, they want to be good parents.
Right.
They do. They don't want to inflict harm. But when they don't come close to addressing the core, because when you've been traumatized, your core, it changes who you are. It changes your core as a human being, right? It fragments your memory. It changes your algorithm, your emotional and psychological algorithm. It changes you. But if you don't address it, if you don't face it, you're gonna always be a sort of terrified, fragmented creature, right? Trauma dehumanizes people. Like that's the thing. It makes people react in ways that doesn't make sense to themselves. Even they know I probably shouldn't be having kids, but that animal brain, it overrides the frontal lobe every time.
So Kim, Ali, Sheree?
I mean, a lot of what they're saying I have seen from a distance. I don't personally know anyone that does that. Just that is whatever it is. I think that's a pretty extreme case. I think just generally though, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, okay, I have a family now. I have a child. There were certain things that happened to me or maybe certain things that I experienced. And so I am going to make a concerted effort to make sure that I was at the end, or I am the end of that particular trauma. I think that's a healthy thing to say. I think that's a powerful declaration to make. I think a lot of times if you have the tools, you have the experience, you have the support, you are actually able to stop that from happening. You are actually able to stop that from going on. Now that I have seen some pretty very strong examples of that. Again, I want to speak generally. I don't want to speak in extremes. I mean, yes, there are teenage girls who are abandoned and who have a baby, so somebody will love them. That's true. Yeah, but there are also people who are very powerful in their words and their intentions, and they realize that certain things that have happened before, they don't want to continue, and they do the work to make those things not happen. So, I mean, I've seen all spectrums, I think, King, of what you're saying. I want to lean more so on the more positive spectrum of that. I, for one, have declared that there are some things that maybe I saw or experienced that my children will not, and they haven't. And that doesn't make me a perfect parent, doesn't make me any better than anybody else. It just means that there are certain things that I was made aware of, and I was made aware of the beginning, the impetus of certain things. And so I've avoided certain situations, behaviors, certain things because I know how it affected me, and I won't have that same thing happen to them. And I mean, I think that that's an extremely positive thing. Y'all let me know if it's not, but that's my way of stopping certain things from happening, and just kind of, the buck stops here, literally, with a few things that have happened to me personally.
Ali?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of subjects going on here. Look, I want to let you guys know that why men don't have birth control, and all they have is a condom option right now. A couple things when it comes to ethics.
Vasectomy, right? And
Well,
those are like
vasectomy
highly
is a good one.
reversible.
It's reversible. It is. It is. Okay, so ethics are different now. When women were being tested and trialed for birth control, there were unethical practices going on. The do no harm first situation wasn't really in place. We've advanced past that. So there are very negative side effects for men. It's going to feminize them. The answer to male birth control is estrogen. And men are already being feminized in many ways, culturally and environmentally. Women struggle with reproduction as well. But that's kind of why. We just got different parts, y'all. And like, I think that's okay. I think it's okay that women have certain reproductive organs and that men have other ones. But like to operate in reality, right? Because I think we're just trying to help the next generation get it better, but we can't do that if we don't preach accountability on both sides. I understand. Like, I don't feel bad for a man who got like his 9th baby mama and he's broke and can only afford a McDonald's Happy Meal. I don't feel bad for him. Like, he's stupid at this point. And I warn women, if you're going to pursue a man who has a child, that it's best if he is divorced and it's from one mother, because you start getting to these multiple mothers and you're looking at him too. Like, you can't choose a proper mate. But those are my opinions on male birth control. I would love it if I would love it if the world was a little bit different, but it's not. And I would say too that people need to be mindful that certain movements were not created with brown folk in mind, and they have very much devastated the community. And I work against that every day.
Sheree,
Okay,
before Anna
sure.
responds, before you respond, let Sheree go. She hasn't spoken. Please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Sheree. I'm so annoying, but I just don't want to forget what she said so I can respond.
No, you're not annoying at all.
What was the question again? I'm being quiet because it's been so much information being spilled out, and I really just been taking in the information, because for me, usually my point is to really come to a solution. There are mistakes on both ends. Men and women are making mistakes, and we are highlighting today. We started out highlighting the trauma of women and how it's affecting our relationships. And everybody has their problems and their issues and their traumas, and we're all trying to figure it out. And one of the things that I highlight all the time is trying to bring back the Black nuclear family. We could talk about highlighting the nuclear family altogether, but my focus is the Black nuclear family, because when it comes to a lot of things economically and other things, we're at the bottom. So that's going to be my focus. I think that because we are at the bottom in that area and other areas, and my focus is to get this nuclear family back going, it's like, I don't care to point the finger no more. I don't care, because we all jacked up. It's like, we need to just figure this out, have these conversations about moving forward, because mama didn't know how to choose and daddy didn't know the responsibility of choosing. So it's like, I just really I like for us to really understand that the reason that a lot of the passion behind these conversations is because everybody in some fragment cares. So since we know that much, let's do something. That's just me. To the conversations that we've been having before we started with the question.
Okay, Anna and Lisa, you didn't forget your points, right?
Probably, but I think that it'll come to me. I think that it can be a disservice if we don't, like, we can never expect men to step up to the mantle of manhood if they're not accountable, right? So it's just not, coddling them is sort of the reason why they're so ineffective today. If you look at them compared to other groups of men, they're an ineffective group of men, right? We can have this conversation. But coddling them, apologizing for them, it's not going to, they will never step up to the mantle of manhood ever, right? Because it's always, well, she chose me. I mean, she chose me. I'm a bum. She knew I was a bum. She chose me. You have a responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility. Everyone's accountable. Like, that's the reality. But in the Black community, Black men they're coddled they're defended, they are protected by their women, mind you. Women are protecting men. I don't know in what other culture we see this happening as a phenomenon, but Black women are absolutely marching for men and trying to advocate on behalf of men and trying to protect men. That is like what happened. That it's been happening in the Black.
Are they protecting their men or are they protecting their sons?
They're Black men. It could be their husband. It could be their neighbor. Black women are community minded. So Black women look at things more macro. They think about the Black collective. They're
Right.
not thinking my son, my in my experience and what I've seen and being a part of some of these, or in the past,
Right.
being a part of these organizations, they look at things from a community minded lens.
Right.
So they're
And I
looking
agree,
at Black men.
and I agree with you. Black women as a whole have a communal spirit, but when it comes to dating and vetting, I think that's competitive.
No, but I'm not talking about that. We're not even talking about that right now. Just let me
No, the reason I said that because if you're referring to you saying, oh, you said it was funny. You said, oh, you act like you pick these guys. When y'all pick men, y'all pick these bozos and stuff like that. You act like they don't have a choice in it, right? But that deals with dating and vetting. That does, and it's very competitive. So even if you think on a community level, the whole process of vetting and dating is competitive. That's individualistic, right?
I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm saying we can't apply community or the sense of community in within the context of dating or vetting or breeding children when that's competitive.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a class of people or a group of people protecting another group of people. I'm not talking about what you're talking about.
Okay.
But King, if I can kind of push back to what you're saying,
Right.
you're saying that dating and mating is competitive, but like you're dating and mating to contribute to the collective, right? Because dating or mating, getting married specifically, is the structure that I think have all agreed will strengthen our community. It strengthens our economic power, so on and so forth. So I mean, yeah, it's competitive, but you're competing to get to that status to help the collective.
No, I mean, I think I definitely get what you're saying, but I think people say that because it sounds good, but technically, no one thinks about the entire community when they're looking for a husband. No one thinks.
But they do though.
Aren't we? That's two different conversations. I don't know how. When did we conflate those two?
He might be trying to make a turn in the conversation, Annalisa. You gotta,
right? Because I'm trying to. Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean,
no, but
King,
it's confusing to conflate those ideas. I didn't. That was not my proposition. I didn't propose that as an ideal.
Well, that's why I inferred. So go ahead. That's why I inferred.
See, you really. I feel like that was intentional. You messed up my whole train of thought. But I'll go back to.
And that was intentional. I didn't mean to.
Sure. I'll go back to what Ali said. Ali, stay away from the birth control argument. Listen, this is me telling you. I don't know you.
Oh, you're gonna tell me what to do now? All right.
I'm being facetious. I'm trying to like be playful. Like back away from that water. Stay away from that. Women are also being pumped with detrimental sex hormones as well. It has that effects as well, right?
Yeah, and I'm not on birth control, and I'm not having sex because I'm engaged.
But men, condoms. That's it. Put the condom on. Get the banana in practice. Get a zucchini. Get a pencil. I don't really care. Condoms. You understand? That's it. You can't. It's not comparable to compare the effects of birth control that women are subjected to and women are forced to take and demonized if they don't, because God forbid they value their uterus and they don't want to have the hysterectomy 10 years after they take their IUD out and they're having some adverse effects or reactions.
Annalisa, those are rare side effects. Those are rare. That's rare.
You know what's not rare?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
That's not rare. Benign tumors are not rare.
Fibroids in the Black community, they're kind of linking them to birth control and linking them to the higher estrogen rates. And there's some other things like specifically that are targeting Black women. I mean, I have handfuls of friends that have continued to have surgical procedures to remove them. The commonality is that they're all Black, and another commonality is that they've been on birth control for years.
Thank
You
you.
turn 14 or 15 in the Black community, you're getting on the pill or you're getting somebody shot. Culturally, I know that's not everybody's story. I just wanted to kind of interject that there because
Thank you.
we
I
Well,
love
are
it.
seeing.
so you're telling men to wear condoms.
Hold on. I'm telling Allie to tell them because she like
tell them?
I don't understand why it's not apples.
Men, wear condoms.
It's not comparable.
Y'all
Stay
crazy.
away from the contraceptive argument is what I'm saying.
No, women have power. We have autonomy. Feminism won. We have contraception. We have autonomy.
And feminism in the white community won.
You think that these men care? Okay. So are we not going to say that there are some men?
They absolutely won, and there are some residuals in which we were able to triumph. But I can assure you, feminism started with white women. They won. Feminism.
Yeah. So why are you using their talking points?
What talking point? What talking point belongs to white women?
Feminism is not for brown people. I keep trying to tell y'all. It's a problem. The nuclear family is going to be the best thing for us.
Identify what I'm saying specifically that pertains to white feminism. What?
Well, the fact that I can't bring up birth control even though it exists. I mean, that's a feminist talking point.
What? Sorry, say it again.
The fact that I can't bring up birth control even though it exists, and we have pretty decent access to it. That's
what you're doing is you're taking what I'm saying and you're twisting it. You're making it much more insidious than it is. I'm facetiously and trying to like jokingly say to you, you can't compare birth control between men and women. You can't. It can't be done. If you're saying, hey, if you want to avoid pregnancy, women you've had these options, and men, if they try to be on birth control, the hormones, they're already feminized. Well, Black women are already masculinized. Black women are already dealing with adverse side effects. Like
if you guys want these conflicts to stop, then you need to embrace conservatism and traditionalism in the healthy way. A healthy masculine man will take care of his children.
None of that has anything to do with. I'm saying to you.
Okay.
I'm saying it's condoms and IUD. It's not apples to apples. That's all I'm saying. That's it. I don't know why you brought it up to say, hey, this is the reason that men can't also be on birth control. Oh, then wear a condom. Wear a condom then. Like that's it.
Yeah, but like an idiot isn't gonna like. You think that these losers, these men that are losers, they don't care. They don't care who they get pregnant because child support's cheap. It's cheap. The sexual revolution has created this issue. That's what's going on here. We are seeing the side effects of the sexual revolution. We have autonomy, right? Now men can have sex with women with no accountability and no need for marriage, no need for fatherhood. So we need to take that power back. We need to embrace conservatism because it will help us. And if you want to talk about trauma, you know what I'm saying? Like marriage is the number one thing that's going to help kids to avoid child abuse. Like it's all connected.
Marriage? Who initiates marriage? Who initiates marriage? Men.
I mean,
right?
usually women. I mean,
hold on. You know what you need?
Where's the stat? Pull it up, Anna. Where's the stat?
You need to have men who are marriage minded. And do you have that in the Black community? You think that we have that in the Black community? I know you're not Black, but
maybe if you guys didn't listen to feminists, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not for us. We can't listen to them.
Who on this panel, by and large, predominantly believes Black men in the Black community are marriage minded? Put your hand up. Okay, thank you. Right. Yeah, I'm not surprised. You don't surprise me. But people in the Black community, they understand that men initiate marriage. If a woman is good enough to nut and she should be good enough to marry, they initiate marriage.
Okay.
Yo, I'm done. Okay, let's move on. This girl, she coddles Black men. Like there's like this hyper sense of like
I'm coddling Black men.
Like just stop. They're men. They are men.
You're coddling women by saying that they don't have autonomy, even though we have 30 plus forms of birth control. You're coddling everybody.
Stop coddling Black men. Coddle Puerto Rican men. Stop coddling Black men.
Well, my fiance is white, but you tried.
Okay, I don't care who you're with.
Hold on. We crossed the lines here. Like
I don't care. No, hold on. I don't care who you're with.
Yeah,
we're talking about Black men, and I'm telling you, stop coddling them. This is why it's difficult to have conversations with Black.
Who raises the Black men? Who is raising the Black men? Maternal narcissism is a problem. Maternal narcissism.
If I can interject.
Yes, Kim. Yes.
Please.
Can I say one thing before she goes? I'm so sorry. Can I say, is anybody's discipline psychology here?
I study anthropology, and also I
So
can
not
read.
psychology. Okay, so anyways, that's my purview. Let me tell you what studies have shown and what studies reflect. Do you know where so the issues stem from absenteeism? So you could say it's the mom's raising him, but guess what? The father not raising them has a more detrimental effect.
Trauma.
Economically, socially, politically, mentally, and emotionally. That is the reality. A man not being there creates an economic void in the home. A man not being there creates a psychological void and an emotional void in the mind. Because why? There's no father to love the child. Do you you understand the number one correlation between between criminality and juvenile delinquency is absenteeism. They don't say single mothers, you're staying, you're the reason. You're raising them, you're the reason. They're saying you need a man to put checks and balances on the child. That is the number one correlation for juvenile delinquency and criminality. That's what we in the psychology, that's what we know to be true for a fact. So you can say as much as you want, it's women raising the children, but the ones who are not raising them are also culpable. They are also responsible for the outcome of the child, whether it is negative or positive. Like, what world are we in?
Okay, well then tell the deadbeat dads that, because they're not listening, because they don't care.
It takes two parents. It takes two to raise a child. If you take a parent away, you are creating a void. You are creating a deficit in the mind, in the home, in the bank account, and in the community. Like back away.
Right. So Kim, you had something to say.
Yeah, just at that point, I really did want to interject, and it could be me being emotional. So chat, y'all go ahead and call me out, feminist, whatever. That's not the case. I just don't like the notion that the sole reason that there are some men in the Black community that maybe are not family minded, that maybe don't have the best or positive outcomes. I just don't want to point the finger that they were just raised by their mother. I just don't. I don't think, and I'm not saying that Allie, you did. I'm just saying that I don't like to hear it, because that is not the only factor in why that particular man has those particular outcomes, because you need both parents. And so I completely agree with Annalicia. A person's impact can be felt if they're not there. And then, of course, we do know that there are toxic mothers in the Black community as well. Yes. But then it's like, if that's not, again, and we're about to go with the sum and all, whatever. But if that's not all, like, that can't be the one thing that contributes to that actual outcome. If we look at a person, it is really about their environment. And what is your environment made up of? Several different things. We've got the socioeconomic layer, we've got the education layer, we've got the family layer. It's just so many other things. So I don't like it being like, okay, well, if your mom wasn't single, then this would happen. I mean, yes, married.
That's not why.
Yeah, that's what I actually, Kim, Anna said criminality within Black men it has a lot to do with the man not being there.
It is directly correlated.
Right, that's what she's saying.
And it's directly linked.
Yeah, but that's kind of the opposite. That's kind of what you. We know that's kind of. But I'm trying to correct Kim, because she says she doesn't like when people say that. But I think Anna said that though.
Right. No, what she said was that criminality was directly related to absenteeism of the father. What I'm saying is that I don't like it when there are negative outcomes or outcomes that we don't want in Black men. And we're like, oh, that's because you were raised by a single mom. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just saying, like, let's just examine and let's talk about other factors. Let's talk about the entire environment. Let's talk about the absenteeism. Let's just kind of mix it up, because I think that that's something that is said over and over and over again. Maybe I'm having a visceral response. Maybe I'm being emotional. Whatevs. Mm-hmm. I just don't like to hear it. And I think that we are having up-leveled conversations about things. At least I hope we are. I just, because it's, and I probably should stop reading the chat, but I'm sure it's some foolishness in there. And I just, it peeves me. That's all.
But Kim, I don't even know how this is possible. I don't understand how you can disassociate or completely separate absenteeism and single motherhood. You cannot have a single mother without an absent father. How are you looking at the mom and saying, well, she's there, it's her fault? Who's raising them?
Makes them care. You can't make a man care about his kids when he doesn't. You can try.
You can't make it make sense. You can't.
Yeah, but we both we know
by
we
virtue
know, but
one thing
Sheree
is
has
one
to go.
thing
Sheree
because
has
of
to go.
the
She
other
hasn't
thing.
gone yet.
Yeah.
You ready to go? Sorry.
Yeah, because this conversation is definitely interesting when we were talking about that. But I wanted to, because when Annalisa asked whether or not Black men were family oriented, I didn't raise my hand because I don't know overwhelmingly. In my experience, I run across men who talk about marriage all the time. In my experience, but I can't, unfortunately, overwhelmingly, what men are thinking when it comes to family. I don't know, because I think so. A lot of times, what your perception is because of the people that you allow in your circle. So if I ask one person, they'll probably say hell no, and then you talk to me, and I'm sitting here like, I run across men who want marriage all the time. So we can't. It's really difficult. And then also when you poll men, when they poll men speak of marriage, but we can't say specifically Black men because I don't think there's a poll on that. So
No, there is.
that's the part that's why I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I can raise my hand or not. And then when we're talking about absentee fathers and mothers and things of that sort, as it's like with that conversation right there, it's like um there's so many levels to men not being there, and then there's so many levels of women being a single mother. And I think a lot of times, because we don't, and I always go back to this, the mentality of having a community, I think, is where the clash comes in, because sometimes men don't because the way that a man's mind works is just, I'm not going to be able to completely grasp it because I'm not a man, and the way that they think, I think there's the community kind of just failed them as much as they failed us. So it's difficult to say they it's difficult to say who had it necessarily the work. I don't know what to say to that. I think that the question more so to me would be whether or not who has the ability to have people in their circle when it comes to these decision makings, because there's a lot of men who are out there not having other men tell them like, bro, go take care of your kids. You got some of them who's running around here not taking care of their kids, and they ain't got no men telling them to go take care of their kids. And then you got women out here that are just popping off, having kids, and just not and just, not realizing the responsibility of, usually we the ones that take the bulk of the responsibility when it comes to having a kid, and no one's telling them like, calm down. It's you gonna end up with another body in the house if you don't slow down. So I think it's more so of trying to figure out who's being responsible in the individual conversations, and being able to bring forth the mentality of community, because there's certain mistakes you wouldn't even make certain mistakes if somebody held you responsible for certain mistakes. Like, you wouldn't even do it. You wouldn't even try to figure like, I'm sitting here not having kids, because I will be damned if I'm sitting here without a kid and not married, because the way that my mama raised me. And that's not to say that mistakes don't happen. That's just to say that I had a pretty strong community. So what I'm thinking to myself is, those conversations about community, I think, because if we keep pointing fingers, it's kind of just, it's like there's so many people who don't even have a community to tell them to get a finger pointed at them in the first place, and then they have the whole neighborhood pointing at them, and they're still trying to figure out what the hell is going on. They're just out there by themselves, and no one to tell them the honest truth about the decisions that they're making, because they didn't even, there's some there are people out here, I don't know how many times. So I'm in Chicago, right? And the neighborhood I grew up in was not the best. I grew up in the South Shore neighborhood. And at one point I think this was in 2015 or something like that, South Shore neighborhood was on the news every day, 2-3 times a day. And it was never good. Somebody died, somebody killed, somebody something, right? A part of that was an agenda. But however, I know the neighborhood. I grew up there, and it's stuff going on there, right? I don't know how many times I've run across somebody who has no idea of what a healthy family looks like. They don't have any idea. They don't know what a daddy look like. And if they in the house with mama, they don't know what a healthy mama look like. They don't know none of that. They have no idea. So it's a whole nother conversation when we're talking about our particular situation, because it's like all of us are traumatized on a whole nother level, and we ain't even touching that, because it's like I remember having a conversation with a girl, and she's telling me, she was like, I wish I had what you had. You have the ability to call your mom and call your brothers and call your sister if you need help, and be able to do this, that, and the third. And I will have an intellectual conversation with her, and the very next moment have a conversation with her where it's nothing but drama, issues, because her sister will start fighting, her mama will be able to fight, and everybody is just have a mindset of just straight, like, survival, gotta kill mentality, and that's all she knows. That's all she knows. So when we try to bring in the mentality of it's this fault and that, some of these people don't even know it's their fault, because they never got anything. They don't even know what it looks like. It's hard to even grasp that. And I think I had to have that conversation with my mom, because my mom was talking about, oh, they should get up and go do it, and get up and go have this and do this and fight for what and make better choices. And I'm saying, like, they don't know that the other choice exists. It's like, I don't even think people even understand those people exist. Like, I've seen this conversation with these people when I grew up in my neighborhood all the time. My friend at the time when I was growing up in the neighborhood was an anonymous, a straight anonymous. Like, if I tell you guys her story and how she grew up, people go, what? Because it's like no one freaking can grasp the idea of even making the first step of a smart decision, because nobody told them and it was an option. They don't even know. So I think we just gotta understand what we talking about when we point fingers and talk about certain things, because some of these people don't even know. They don't even know.
Okay, can I say something? Because I don't want people to misunderstand me. When I asked for a show of hands, right? And obviously I'm asking, and it would be based on your answer.
And I want to say that we're gonna close out, so everybody get their final things. So just let everybody knows that's 12. It's 12. So we're gonna close out. Everybody get their final words. I'm just letting you know.
So
sorry to interrupt.
When I asked, like, by and large, do we feel that Black men, and obviously I know it's going to depend on the environments that you're in, the people that you run with, the circles that you're in some cases, your socioeconomic strata, I get it. I asked that, and anecdotally, everyone, except for obviously King and who else, but everyone else knows.
Allie.
Right? Because they're in and of the community, right? Like, we overstand. But also we have to keep in mind that marriage is tracked, right? Like, we have access to understanding the data, and we can break it down. Marriage is tracked. So you can see the rates at which Black men are getting married or not getting married. And the last time I checked, it was, I think, 26% of Black men overall. Right. So a lot of people say, well, 80% of Black men are marrying Black women. Right. That's fine. But what's the percentage of Black men getting married, period? Right. Like not to, it doesn't matter. I don't care to what race. The majority of Black men are not even married. They're not married. That's the reality. So you can look at that and extrapolate, you know what, maybe as a collective. This is not a community. This is not a marriage-minded group of men. You can absolutely, because men that value marriage, they get married. They get married. That's the reality. And when we're talking about the community, I know a lot of people don't like this, but who's responsible for communities? Who builds them? Who's responsible for them? Like we can play as much as we want, but in reality, men are responsible for communities. They are. If you want to see you look to the men to see what they're providing in their communities. And that's how it works in every community, among every race and every culture. That's how it works. Women are nurturing. We put the community on our back, but we're not the ones creating and building it, nor should we be. So if the Black community is in a state of degradation, degeneracy, poverty, you can, and this is the blame game. There's a catalyst. There's absolutely a catalyst. Think about the hood. Who makes it dangerous? Who picks up arms? Who's selling drugs? And we can talk about outliers. We can talk about exceptions to the rules, and we can talk about city girls. Majority rules. Majority wins. That's how it works in the real world. Who makes the Black community unsafe? There is Black men and no, it's Black men. It's Black men. We need to be honest about that. There is absolutely a catalyst. This is cause and effect. So we're not going to point our fingers. I know everyone's afraid of pointing the fingers, but we can also understand that men are responsible. Like, a lot comes with being a man. I would never want to be a man. It comes with a lot of responsibility. It really does. But the reality is, communities, they're built by men. They're like that's it. Women and children are at the mercy of men. We're not building communities. We're in the community. We're at the mercy of men. We're vulnerable people. That's the reality. White men build their communities. They make sure that their kids have access to the best schools. And they also make sure that Black men are not in the community, because they know what the implications are and the associations are. They know what happens to the property value. That's what happens. They get involved in politics. They get certain legislation and certain laws passed. So let me wrap it up. In summation, going back to trauma, since this is about trauma anyways, I don't want to lose sight. If we're talking about trauma in the Black community, and I only care about the Black community, we're talking about treatment, therapy. Therapy is, and not necessarily cognitive behavioral therapy, because the way that trauma affects your brain, it doesn't really affect your cognition. EDMT is an amazing, well, you know what? Yoga. I feel like yoga is affordable. I want to give people accessible treatment plans. Yoga, trauma informed in yoga can change your life. If you are someone who is experiencing somatic trauma and it's in your body, you still have the physical somatic effects of it. Trauma can absolutely help you reconnect to your body and help sort of reconfigure the traumatic pathways in your brain so that your body and your mind can become one. Yoga is amazing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next. Sheree?
I thought Nikki wanted to say something, because she's wanted to say something after
Okay.
I'm just gonna have my closing remarks at this point. I think we're good. So okay. I can give my closing remarks now if you want me to go next. Is that what we're doing? Okay, I'm giving my closing remarks. Is that what I'm doing right now?
You can go. Yeah.
So I think my conclusion to this is, and I know it might not be for everybody, but y'all know I come from a faith perspective. It might not be for you, but even if you don't, I think there's just some basic ethics that are missing in a lot of pockets in our community. I think that there are just basic standards that we have let slide down to the bottom of the pole, which has contributed to our inability to have strong families, or the fact that we don't have strong families. I think we have to stop thinking it's okay to just have babies out of wedlock, for women and men. We have to stop thinking that it's normal. We have to stop promoting it. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, if you got pregnant and you weren't married, you did not get no baby shower. It wasn't like a celebration. It was kind of like okay, girl, we go buy these Pampers, but we're not inviting your 18-year-old friends to come over here and have a hooray baby party, like, we're not doing that, because this is not what's supposed to be happening. When I was in high school, I have a teacher, and I went to private Catholic school, and one of my teachers got pregnant, and she was unmarried. She was about 27 at the time. We were maybe 16 in class, and she was fired. The school's like, you cannot stand up here in front of these children pregnant with no husband. You are not going to set that example at this school. And at the time, I thought it was extra, but as an adult now, I understand that they had a standard. And I think, you know, she understood that too, and she left. I think in our community, we've become so accepting of dysfunctional behavior and pretending that it's normal, that we have a completely dysfunctional community. And I think, you know, for me, it would be a faith-based response. But even if you're not into faith, just general ethics. I don't think a man should feel comfortable showing his face in a community when he got 8 kids out here he not taking care of. He should be ashamed. He should be, I don't want to say ran out of town, but I know there are communities and there are cultures where you wouldn't feel comfortable just hanging at the barbershop when you got 8 kids by 7 different women. That would not be cool. Nobody would be dapping you up for that. We need to stop that. We have to set a standard for women too. It's not cool for you to be out here with 7 kids by 5 different men. That's not cool. I'm sorry. It's not. And we have to stop pretending.
Wait, hold on. Is that judgmental?
What?
I'm asking, is that judgmental?
I think I just said women and men.
No. That's judgmental. For either.
I thought you said, is that just men?
No, I said judgmental.
Call it what you want. If you feel judged, you're gonna have to eat that. I'm not taking it back.
That shaming?
Not judging hasn't gotten us anywhere. Not judging has got us where we are now. Saying don't judge me, only God can judge me, ain't nothing you can do, is what has everybody running rush and it's complete disorder. So we have to have some standards. I wouldn't say it's a judgment, but if you're wrong, you're wrong. And I'm sorry, having 7 kids by 6 different people is just not good. It's not good. And we have to just call a thing at this point. And you know, I'm not saying you going to hell. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying it's time for us to say this is not a good decision. This is not okay. And we're not clapping for it anymore. Stop it. And so that's where I am. I just think we need to implement some actual standards and stop with the politically correct, just looking away and acting like there's nothing to see here. We see all of this here. Wow. And it's chaos. And if we're going to clean it up, we have to start being honest. We have to be honest with ourselves. We've tried this free-for-all experiment. It was a failure. So let's go back to what worked. And what worked was having standards and having the majority of the people in the community abide by those standards. So I'm a proponent of let's get back to standards. That's all I'm saying.
Wow, that sounds like conservatism and traditionalism.
Sounds like success.
That sounds like what Sheree said, nuclear family.
Exactly. I mean, it's not bad.
But that's what conservatism is, right? And traditionalism, right?
Yeah. I have to agree with what she was saying. I'm gonna leave my closing remarks because that's the same mentality that it's coming from for me. I just have a little bit with me. I just come with a little understanding and compassion, but at the same time, I'm gonna tell you straight up. I mean, because the thing is, when I talk about community, if you close to me, you're gonna hear what I think. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, baby, and like that particular friend that I was talking about, me and her don't even communicate anymore because just our histories and our backgrounds and the way we brought up, it just didn't parallel. It just didn't. And it's just what it is. But I think my closing remark says, when referring to trauma, we definitely need to have. I'm so happy that we are finally in a space in the Black community where therapy is not so taboo anymore. Where now everybody is able to say it, speak it, talk about it. It's not like, oh, you go to, because at one point it was, oh, therapy, Black people don't go to therapy. You go to Jesus and da 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 da. And it's like, can you do both? So I think I'm glad that we are having that kind of conversation in regards to the topic of trauma, women going through trauma and relations to dating. I think that when you start to notice certain things with certain patterns in your life and you're allowing certain men in your life, you have to acknowledge it, notice it, fix it and work on it, because you can't keep blaming men. You got to work on yourself and figure out what it is that's causing a certain pattern or causing certain things in your life. You know what I mean? So whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, work it out, seek help if you can. If you don't feel it, you can afford it, there are apps out here now. There's apps out here where you can go ahead and get therapy. So I say go seek it. If you're noticing people in your life who are not giving you the ability to really express yourself, sometimes you're gonna have to learn to love people from afar. And sometimes those relationships come back sometimes, because then they can respect your decision and understand. If they can't, they can't. You can't make nobody understand your try. So but yes, so seek the help, figure it out if you really are working to have a healthy relationship with a man, please. And that's to the subject today.
Okay, Kim O'Halley.
I'll go ahead and go. So, in all this, my thought process is this. I think just a collective goal for us, just as people, should be wholeness, and it should be awareness, right? And when I say awareness, that doesn't mean like total and complete knowledge of like your trauma and how to diagnose it, so on and so forth. Just awareness that something might not be right and going to source out the help to try to fix it, as well as going to therapy, because I do see that some barriers are being broken. I also do see that it's being trendy. While you're there, pick up some tools, because sometimes people just go and lay on the couch. I have no judgment, but I think in everything that you do, be effective and have intention. So, like, get the tools and teach yourself as well how to respond to certain things when they happen. It's almost like, it's late. I can't think of an analogy, but just literally take what I said. I think early intervention is key as well. And just kind of, even before you get the inkling that something's wrong, just be like, hey, let me go. Let me talk to someone. I think it's something that we should encourage for our children as well. I don't know if I can say that word. The recent health crisis that we have going on, a lot of things that have happened, it can cause responses in children. So just not waiting for these things to kind of show themselves, just kind of suggest your kids go talk to someone, right? Doesn't have to be every week. Just see if it works, see if it's helpful. Additionally, something Annalicia said is really sticking with me, and now she's got me questioning like a lot. I am super getting into stats, and that whole 80% thing that she said is really interesting, because I think as well, when we are talking about stuff and we're talking about statistics, like it's good to ask questions. So I think we hear all the time, I even have a sticky note here, 80% of Black men are married to Black women, but that's the 80% of Black men that are married. What's the total percent? And I think that was her question. And I really think that if we are going to have conversations that are framed by statistics, we really have to get in it and ask those questions. Sometimes it'll be a study where, those answers are there. Sometimes it won't. But I think if we don't have that level of critical thinking, then some of the answers that we are needing to find solutions for our community, we might not find. Everybody take a moment, breathe, meditate, do yoga, journal, do whatever you got to do to kind of free your mind and get things going. And yeah, that's it. Just thank you all so much for joining. This was heavy. You could do that too. Dancing is good, cycling, drawing, whatever. Like, just, get it out and get to the part where you're engaging that little girl or that little boy inside of you, where you're being creative, where you're being free. Because it's in those moments of silence, of freedom, of creativity that you have those breakthroughs.
Okay, and Allie.
Yes. Okay. So I think the best thing that we can do for trauma is to get people married and get them to stay married. Marriage is not for everyone. Marriage is very hard work. I think we need to be mindful how we paint certain demographics of men, because if we keep telling them that they're awful, then why would they get married just to be unappreciated? It's really important to consider both sexes in these things. And look, people can call me crazy, but it's true. And I mean, you could look at the comment sections of most of these channels and you can call it being a pick-me or you can call it hearing men because they are the other half of the human population. In regards to trauma, if men were the primary caregivers, I would focus on them. No joke, 100% would focus on them, but they're not. And I don't make the rules here. In every culture, women are expected to raise children. I've studied matriarchal cultures and anthropology. It just is what it is. So I believe the problem that is coming up in modernity with mothers is maternal narcissism. I encourage you guys to look that up because, yes, there are some women who are being basically groomed to be so self-centered, they're never going to consider their kids. It's not all women, but it's important and we need to be mindful of this. And I would say Malcolm X got a couple of things right about certain progressive demographics and to look into some things like that because some movements are here to infiltrate and break people up, and it's counterproductive.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, queens, flowers, for giving us this wealth of knowledge. You know, I just want to say one thing. I'm Pisces. I like long walks on the beach, candlelight dinners. There was a joke. I want everybody to calm down. We had a very tough conversation. I just want to lighten up the situation. But seriously, it's refreshing that we can have different women from different walks of life give their perspective. And we don't have to agree. We don't have to even see each other's viewpoints, right? We're not here to convert anybody. We're here to give our viewpoints, and those who want to adhere to it, that's on you. If you don't have to. And that's what I love about this conversation. This conversation is, at least I want to give the world different viewpoints. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be a person that jams one thing into the world. That's not cool. I like to give options. I'm a man that believes in options, not just option with women like I claim to be, but options with schools of thought. Right? We need options of schools of thought because what happens is we wouldn't be a world if we didn't have diversity. And diversity is just not in skin color, it's also in school of thought and consciousness. So we really, really need to, I'm proud of everybody tonight because I saw diversity, right? Whether we got along, whether we didn't get along, who cares? Guess what? Every one of you represent pockets of people in our community, right? That's why you have your own channels and people come and follow you and gravitate to you and they're attracted to what you say. So, you know, I'm just happy that this is a platform we can have all those pockets come to one place and share their thoughts and their perspectives and share their lens of how they see life, childhood trauma, and relationships. So thank you for coming. I appreciate everyone. And till next time, have a good night. Thank you.